Chapter 320. Completely useless. Asking for monthly tickets, asking for monthly tickets, asking for monthly tickets. 3 cars, 3 groups of people, and 3 different directions. Chang Baji and Qin Xing's car separated again at the second traffic light. The difficulty of the game gradually increased. Moreover, it was late at night. Once the other party lost track of the target, it would be more difficult than ascending to heaven to find Qin Xing after they changed cars. Moreover, Qin Xing had another identity, which was the identity they had in Xiamen at that time. He could get out of the car at any time and take another means of transportation to leave Hangzhou City. By then, Qin Xing would really be able to escape. However, Chang Baji did not dare to let Qin Xing leave the city. After all, the opponent was too powerful. Only when they left Hangzhou City would they have a better chance. Finally, he was going to leave Hangzhou City. His wandering life was going to start again. He didn't know if he could leave Hangzhou City safely. Wuhan was not necessarily the final destination. It depended on whether the Zhang family would take him in or not. Even if he went to Wuhan, he had to behave himself and hide his identity for a period of time, until one day he could face these opponents directly, or his position in the Zhang family could make the Zhang family protect him. Lying on the back seat, Qin Xing looked through the car window at the flashing neon skyscrapers flying past. The night view of Hangzhou City was still beautiful. He also liked this city with half mountains and half lakes very much. However, this city could not accommodate him. Qin Xing took out his phone and sent a text message to Xue Qinyan. It was a simple sentence: "Sister, I'm leaving. See you later." He also told Chao Da that the situation had changed and that he would be leaving tonight. In the end, he sent a message to Lin Su. "Wife, I'm leaving. Wait for me to pick you up." When the 3 of them received Qin Xing's message, they behaved tacitly. They did not call Qin Xing, nor did they reply to his message, because they knew that Qin Xing could not be distracted at this time. In Jiushi Rose Garden, Chao Da was sitting in the study, smoking and sighing with emotion. He knew that Qin Xing could not have met with any mishap, because he believed that Qin Chang'an must be hiding in the dark. It was just that Qin Chang'an did not show up, unless it was really a critical moment. Therefore, sooner or later, Qin Xing would return to Hangzhou City. At that time, Hangzhou City would be really lively. He wanted to see how Qin Xing would slap those people in the face. As Qin Xing's guide in Hangzhou City, what kind of treatment would he receive then? If Chao Da still had ambitions, he would definitely take advantage of this opportunity to rise again. However, he no longer had any ambition. He felt that his current life was enough. He would leave everything to Chao Zhang. Although Xue Qinyan had returned to Hangzhou, she was still working overtime. She had never been leisurely since she came back. She had to take care of her elderly parents and find time to work, not to mention that she had so many social engagements in Hangzhou. After receiving Qin Xing's text message, Xue Qinyan was in the study with her assistant to sort out the progress of the project through video chat. She turned off the video chat and lit a cigarette. She exhaled a mouthful of smoke gracefully. When she was under great pressure or in a bad she was in a few. She had been thinking of ways to help Qin Xing, but Qin Xing still made his choice. She felt pity for Qin Xing. He was the only young man whom she could approve of in the past 2 years. Hua of was defeated. In the ancestral home of the Lin family in Ningbo, Lin Su was accompanying her grandmother for a walk in the garden. The ancestral home of the Lin family was surrounded by a huge garden. People who did not know would think that it was a park. This was the power of the Lin family in Ningbo. Lin. She. Lin. She. Lin. Her of Lin. Of Lin. Lin. Lin Su shook her head and said, "I'm fine, Grandma." Old Lady Lin did not ask further. She was a smart woman. How could she not know what was going on? It must have something to do with that young man. In Hangzhou City, Gu Qingyang was driving quietly. From the moment he drove out of the garage, he had noticed the tail behind them. Gu Qingyang's driving skills were not bad. Moreover, he was originally bold but careful. Consequently, he shuttled through the traffic fearlessly and even ran the red light many times in a row. However, he still could not get rid of the tail. Of course, Gu Qingyang did not understand why. He was thinking about his future and future. If Qin Xing really escaped successfully, it was obvious that those people would definitely find him to settle the score. By then, he and Tang Yi would not be able to live an ordinary life. Therefore, he had to find a way to tell the other side that Qin Xing was in his car. Gu Xiaobo, who was standing beside Qin Xing, felt very uneasy. On the other hand, everything went smoothly for Chang Baji and Hao Lei. Half an hour later, they passed several traffic lights and got rid of their opponents completely. Then they went to the designated place to change cars according to their original plan. Hulan was devising strategies in the villa. Feng He had gone out to chase them. Now he was in charge of everything outside. He followed Chang Baji's car. After he got rid of it, he was so angry that he almost hit Chang Baji's car. He had to ask Hulan for help. At this moment, Luo Changgong and Li Qingfeng arrived at the villa, followed by Mr. Chu. Mr. Chu had met Chang Baji in the morning. At that time, he was in the car opposite the city branch. If they wanted to deal with this opponent, they had to know him. Li Qingfeng asked, "What's going on now?" "My men told me that 2 of the 3 cars lost the target." Obviously, they were prepared. "We were fooled," Hulan said in a low voice. Luo Changgong cursed on purpose. "I told you that we should have taken action earlier. We didn't need a detailed plan. We could have found someone to kill him directly. At that time, we could have taken the blame. Why did we have to be so troublesome?" Li Qingfeng snorted. "Lao Luo, this guy is not an ordinary person. You used to be so close to him. Don't you know his relationship with the Shui family? At that time, if our families are involved, none of us will have a good time." "You're right." Luo Changgong nodded and said, "You're right." Li Qingfeng asked curiously, "Lao Luo, I'm confused. Why did Third Master Wu give you this task? You are so familiar with him. It's useless to feel it. You won't leak the information to him, will you?" The old monk and Third Master Wu had had too many conflicts before. Moreover, the conflicts among the people below were known from Luo Changgong and Yuan Ku. When Li Qingfeng met Luo Changgong, of course, he would not greet him politely. He would definitely sneer at him. Luo Changgong retorted directly, "You don't need to worry about our business. If you don't trust me, you can do it yourself. Of course, I'm willing to sit back and enjoy the fruits of your labor. After that, I will go back to Third Master Wu to get the credit." Hulan knew that they were not on good terms. He skillfully tried to smooth things over. "Stop it. You are still in the mood to quarrel at this moment. Think about how to deal with this guy. If we let him escape this time, we will really lose face." Luo Changgong snorted and said, "Now we have lost 2 targets. What should we do?" Li Qingfeng said disapprovingly, "How can we lose them? As long as he is driving instead of flying away, we can find him. I will contact the Municipal Public Security Bureau right now and find out where they are with the road surveillance. You just wait." Hulan was quite satisfied. The Chu family and Third Master Wu had been deeply rooted in Zhejiang province for so many years. They did have this kind of power. Hulan said thoughtfully, "After we find out who they are, we should not beat the grass to scare the snake. Let's wait until we leave Hangzhou City. Let's figure out which target Qin Xing is first." Luo Changgong said casually, "Not beat the grass to scare the snake. We also need to figure out the target. It seems a little difficult. Do you have any ideas?" Of course, Hulan would not tell Li Qingfeng and Luo Changgong easily. He did not trust them at all. He only needed them to do it at that time. After Hulan calmed down, he looked at Chu Xikong, who was beside Luo Changgong, and said respectfully, "Mr. Chu, we have to rely on you this time." He could ignore Luo Changgong, but he had to take Mr. Chu seriously. Mr. Chu was not an ordinary person. Even if there were two of him, he might not be a match for Mr. Chu. Li Qingfeng also said in a hurry, "Mr. Chu, we have to rely on you." Chu Sikong chuckled and said, "Leave Chong Baji to me. As for the rest, you deal with it yourselves. I will not care about it." Upon hearing this, Hulan and Li Qingfeng felt relieved. They were most afraid of Chong Baji, who was really a tough guy. If they ran into Chong Baji, none of them might be able to defeat him, unless they played dirty or used firepower. However, it was too risky. Luo Changgong was somewhat worried. Chong Baji was really powerful. He had seen him in Boss Hu's underground boxing field. That was definitely not Chong Baji's most powerful strength. He had also heard from Boss Hu that Chong Baji had beaten everyone in his training base like a dog. Nobody dared to challenge Chong Baji. However, Mr. Chu, who was in front of him, was not an ordinary person. He had followed the old master for so many years. Except for that time when he was careless, no one had defeated him. In the past, he had followed the old master into many dangerous places. The most interesting time was that he had accompanied the old master to Chaos Han alone and escaped unscathed. In this case, if Chong Baji ran into Mr. Chu, what would the result be? At present, Luo Changgong was worried about Chong Baji. After all, Mr. Chu was really powerful. In the downtown area, Chong Baji and Hao Lei got rid of their opponent. They changed cars smoothly and started to carry out the second stage of the plan. They got on the highway and went out of Hangzhou City. Gu Qingyang was still working hard. He was puzzled. He could not get rid of this group of dogs no matter how hard he tried. There were several times when he could not see their tails behind him. However, they came out again after 2 crossings. What kind of trick did they use? Gu Qingyang was a little annoyed. Brother Qin, senior uncle and brother Lei have changed cars smoothly. We have met some experienced people. We can't get rid of them no matter what. Did they find out that you are in this car? Qin Xing frowned and said, "I don't think so. Try again." Gu Xiaobo, who was beside him, was a little scared. He was afraid that Qin Xing would find out that he had betrayed him. Based on Qin Xing's temper, he would definitely not let him go. He could not help but curse them silently. "Are you King idiots? I am in the car. How can you not know where this car is going? Why are you following us so closely?" It was unknown whether Gu Xiaobo's curse worked or something else. Gu Qingyang tried again. After 3 crossings, he finally got rid of his opponents completely. Gu Qingyang said happily, "We made it. Let's change cars." Qin Xing finally let out a sigh of relief. Gu Xiaobo also felt relieved. 20 minutes later, they arrived at an underground parking lot. There was a car arranged by Chong Baji here. Gu Xiaobo suddenly said, "I'm going to pee over there. I can't hold it anymore." Qin Xing and Gu Qingyang did not think much. Moreover, Gu Xiaobo did not go far. He just peed behind the car. However, they did not know that Gu Xiaobo took advantage of this opportunity to send a short message to the other side. "He is in my car." Chapter 321. He was under a lot of pressure. Fortresses were always broken from the inside. This time was no exception. Chong Baji's plan was perfect. However, he had a disappointing martial nephew who directly took drastic measures against his plan. No matter how hard they tried, it was all in vain. If Chong Baji knew this, would he spit blood out of anger? He might have to deal with Chong Baji himself. However, he did not know whether he would have this opportunity. After all, Chu Sikong was waiting for him. After sending the text message, Gu Xiaobo quickly pulled up his pants and ran back. They found the car arranged by Chong Baji. Gu Xiaobo restrained his uneasiness and said casually, "Let's go." Qin Sheng did not doubt Gu Xiaobo. He trusted Gu Qingyang and Gu Xiaobo. However, he felt a little uneasy, but he did not know why. The three of them changed into new jackets and put on their caps before they swaggered off. After leaving the underground garage, Gu Qingyang drove the car out of the urban area quickly. Then, he directly got on the round the city expressway. After that, he transferred to the Hangchang Expressway and headed for Wuhan. When the night view of Hangzhou City was getting farther and farther away, Qin Sheng, who was sitting in the back seat, finally did not need to hide anymore. He sat up straight, looked at Hangzhou City outside the car window, waved his hand and said, "Goodbye, Hangzhou City." In the CC Villa, after receiving Gu Xiaobo's text message, Hulan immediately cheered up. The news he had been waiting for finally came. After reading the text message, Hulan burst into laughter. He had made the right move. Finally, the news he had been waiting for came. Gu Xiaobo did not let him down. This was like a duel between two martial arts masters. The opposite side played a series of moves, which were gorgeous but not practical. Hulan only needed to pierce through the heart with a sword and kill him directly. After reading the text message, Hulan ignored Li Qinfeng, Luo Changgong, and the others who were curious. He directly walked to the balcony and called Feng He. "Feng He, stop looking for him. I already know which one is him. You turn around and go to the northwest of the urban area. Just follow them. Don't rush to take action. Wait for my order." On the other side, after losing the target, Feng He was waiting for new information. However, he did not expect that Hulan had already found Qin Sheng's position. After turning on the positioning system again, Feng He instantly understood what was going on. Because at this moment, only Gu Xiaobo's car was in the northwest direction of the city. Obviously, Qin Sheng and Gu Xiaobo were together, and Gu Xiaobo had already leaked the news to them. Feng He said proudly, "Aren't you very powerful? Let's see how you can escape this time." Neither Hulan nor Feng He doubted the authenticity of Gu Xiaobo's information. It was because Gu Xiaobo's character was not as tough as what he appeared to be. Meanwhile, he had already been swallowed by this colorful world. Moreover, he still had taboos. Moreover, Gu Xiaobo's GPS was still there. If they wanted to verify the authenticity of the information, they only needed to confirm whether Gu Xiaobo was in that car. If Gu Xiaobo was really there, Qin Sheng would definitely be there. Gu Xiaobo would not risk his life for Qin Sheng. After Hulan hung up the phone, Li Qinfeng asked in a hurry, "What? Do you know where he is?" Hulan nodded with a smile. Luo Changgong asked subconsciously, "How did you know that? Could it be that you have someone on his side?" "You don't need to know that." Hulan kept them guessing on purpose. He did not tell Li Qinfeng, Luo Changgong, and the others how on earth he knew that. This was his trump card. He would only show it at the last moment. Hulan followed up with the arrangement. "From now on, until the end, we all stay here. No one is allowed to leave. Put all the phones on the table to ensure that the information will not be leaked." Why did Hulan do that? It was because Gu Xiaobo had told him that Qin Sheng would leave tomorrow night. In that case, why did he suddenly decide to leave tonight? One reason was that Qin Sheng had played a trick. He had said that he would leave tomorrow night on purpose, and then chose to leave tonight. The other reason was that someone had leaked the information. As a result, Qin Sheng had chosen to leave tonight. Consequently, Hulan had to be on guard. Li Qinfeng had no objection to this. Of course, he knew that Hulan did that to guard against Luo Changgong. At this moment, Luo Changgong felt quite uneasy. He was wondering how Hulan had found Qin Sheng's whereabouts. Could it be that Qin Sheng had a spy on his side? Originally, Luo Changgong had been thinking about how to find an opportunity to inform Qin Sheng. However, Hulan's action directly extinguished Luo Changgong's hope. Of course, Luo Changgong dared not take the risk out of desperation. If the third master really knew about it, the consequences would be self-evident. He could only pray for Qin Shing in his heart. Meanwhile, he could only say, Qin Shing, Brother Luo, I can only help you this much. Whether you live or die, it depends on your luck. Luo Changgong replied quite generously, Okay. I have no objection. In case you suspect me, Hulan replied quite generously. Hulan smiled happily as he said, Lao Luo, you think too much. I'm just doing this for the sake of safety. In this way we can finish this earlier. Li Qingfeng stared at Luo Changgong. He really did not know why the Yin family would involve Third Master Wu in this. Qin Sheng was just a nobody. Why did they need to mobilize so many people? In fact, he could kill Qin Sheng alone. After Hulan finished arranging these things, he looked at Mr. Chu and said in a low voice, Mr. Chu, it's time for you to take action. Feng He will contact you. Mr. Chu smiled gently and went out directly. Hulan believed that wherever Qin Sheng was, Chang Baji would be there. He definitely did not expect that Chang Baji was not with Qin Sheng at the moment. It was just a lucky shot. After Mr. Chu left, Hulan made another arrangement. This time, Li Qingfeng, Luo Changgong, and Hulan all brought absolute masters with them. This was a big death package prepared for Qin Sheng. There were 6 people in total. Each family chose 2 masters. They could set off now. At that time, when they met Feng He and Mr. Chu, they would definitely make Qin Sheng die without a burial place. Gu Xiaobo had betrayed them. Qin Sheng, who only had Gu Qingyang to protect him, could live for so long? After all, the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Who dared to ignore Qin Chang'an? Zhuang Zhou and Nangong's deployment was completely disrupted by Chang Baji's perfect plan. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, they had been hiding behind. However, now that Qin Sheng and Chang Baji had separated into 3 groups, Zhuang Zhou and Nangong really did not know which one was Qin Sheng. Their only target was Qin Sheng. As for the other's life and death, it had nothing to do with them. According to the original arrangement, Zhuang Zhou and Nangong chose one group respectively. They were lucky enough to follow Chang Baji and Qin Sheng all the way. However, since the spies arranged by Chang Baji and Nangong had lost them, of course they, who were hiding in the dark, also lost them. Zhuang Zhou and Nangong had to give up this plan and choose the second one. What was the second plan? That was to give up following Qin Sheng and choose to follow the Chu family and the Yin family. They had been sending people to monitor the Yin family and the Chu family in order to know what was going on there at any time. In this way they could have all the countermeasures. The only shortcoming of this plan was that these people could not find Qin Sheng, nor could they find him. At that time they would completely lose Qin Sheng. Unless Qin Sheng escaped and showed up with the identity he had in Xiamen, they could not confirm Qin Sheng's position again. However, during this period, if Qin Sheng had an accident, they did not know how to explain it to Qin Chang'an. After confirming that both of them had lost their targets, Zhuang Zhou and Nangong made a phone call and discussed. This is the only way. Nangong replied, I will report it to my foster father right now. I hope he can understand. It seems that Qin Sheng has been well prepared. He should be able to leave safely. Zhuang Zhou nodded silently and said, You call him first. Then I will go to meet you. We can only wait for the news from the CC Villa. He hoped that Qin Sheng could leave safely. He could not allow what happened in Mount Zhihua last time to happen again, which was too risky. More than 10 minutes later, Nangong and Zhuang Zhou met. They took the same car again and went to the CC Villa, ready to watch over there in person. Zhuang Zhou asked casually, What did he say? Nangong replied honestly, My foster father said that we should carry out our plan first. When it is absolutely necessary, he will use his official connections. Hearing Nangong's words, Zhuang Zhou was relieved. If Qin Chang'an used his official connections, he did not believe that the other side would dare to mess around. However, Qin Chang'an's plan would be disrupted. He might have to reconcile with Qin Shing in advance. In the Sihiyuan of the Qin family in Siju City, Qin Shing's early departure from Hangzhou City also attracted Qin Chang'an's attention. He knew what had happened in Hangzhou City during this period of time. Qin Ran also knew it. She had already taken a plane back from Europe. If he had not stopped Qin Ran would have taken action with the help of the Zhu family. If Qin Ran really did that, there would be no turning back for the whole thing. That was because he did not want the Zhu family to know the news about Qin Shing, let alone others. Although Qin Ran had relented, she had given him an ultimatum. She wanted to know Qin Shing's news at all times. If what happened in Mount Zhihua last time happened to Qin Shing again, the father and the daughter would never see each other again. Therefore, Qin Chang'an was under great pressure. Therefore, after Nangong called him and told him about the current situation, Qin Chang'an said that, "Master, don't worry. Young master will be fine." Gongsun comforted Qin Chang'an. If something happened to Qin Shing again, not only would the relationship between Qin Ran and Qin Chang'an break up completely, the Zhu family would not spare Qin Chang'an after knowing the whole thing. Qin Chang'an did not say anything. After this incident, he would definitely reconcile with Qin Shing. However, would Qin Shing hate him when he knew all this? In Hangzhou City, when Nangong and Zhuangzhou were on their way to Cici Villa, they received a call from the surveillance team. Chu Xikong left Cici Villa with 6 people. Nangong and Zhuangzhou immediately realized that Qin Shing's whereabouts might have been exposed, because they had found out Chu Xikong's background. He was the top master under 3rd Master Wu's command. Since he appeared in Hangzhou City, his target was certainly Qin Shing, because Chang Baji was with Qin Shing. After a discussion, they immediately arranged their subordinates to catch up with Chu Xikong. They rushed to Hangzhou City immediately. At this time, Qin Shing, who was still on the Hangzhou-Changsha Expressway, did not know that danger was coming. He thought that he had left Hangzhou City safely. On the other side, Chang Baji had also gotten on the expressway. He took the Hangzhou-Ru'e Expressway. Eventually, they would meet in Huangmei County in Hubei, which was the only intersection point of the two routes. Chapter 322. It was about to begin. As a big city in the Yangtze River Delta, Hangzhou's nightlife had just begun. Young men and women in the city shed their tiredness and disguise, indulging themselves and releasing their desires. For them, this night was peaceful. But for Qin Shing, this night was destined to be special. Because of Qin Shing, many people couldn't sleep peacefully at night. Because of Qin Shing, many people had to cheer up at night. For Qin Shing, this night was destined to have an ending. Qin Shing was a fugitive. What were his 2 old rivals, Yan Chaozong and Chu Huanxi, doing? Chu Huanxi had already learned from Li Qinfeng that they would take action against Qin Shing tonight. But he was heartless. It didn't matter much to him whether Qin Shing would die or not, as long as he didn't let him see him again. Therefore, at this moment, he was enjoying himself with his gang of scoundrels in the Queen's bar. Anyway, he only needed to know the result later. Compared with Chu Huanxi's indifference, Yan Chaozong, who was far away in Shanghai, had been paying attention to the situation. He would report to Yan Chaozong every once in a while, which was also the reason why Yan Chaozong had arranged for Feng He. In the mansion of Thompson First Class, Yan Chaozong made a pot of tea and watched an old movie, The Pianist on the Sea, absent-mindedly. Then he said to himself, "Tonight, the resentment between us should come to an end." He definitely wouldn't go to bed so early. He must wait for the news and then go to bed with complete relief. Otherwise, he would definitely be restless. Qin Shing was a hurdle in his heart. He would not stop until he heard the news of Qin Shing's death. Yan Chaozong knew that Lin Su had gone back to Ningbo. He also knew that the Lin family would not help Qin Shing. They had joined hands with the Chu family and 3rd Master Wu. If Qin Shing was not stupid, He definitely would not continue to stay in Hangzhou. He would definitely find a way to leave. However, at this time, would they let him leave? Obviously not. It was getting late, and everything was getting more and more complicated. It took 6.5 hours to go from Hangzhou to Qingmei County. When Qin Sheng and the others arrived, it should be after 3 o'clock in the morning. Chang Baji should arrive at about the same time. Feng He and his 3 subordinates followed Qin Sheng's car from a distance. Chu Sikong and the other 6 men with extraordinary skills chased after them all the way, striving to meet up with Feng He as soon as possible. Gu Qingyang and Gu Xiaobo took turns to drive the car. Qin Sheng was resting with his eyes closed in the back seat. However, he could not fall asleep no matter how hard he tried. He always felt uneasy and did not know why. Hao Lei and Tang Shi were the safest. They drove all the way to the south. Chang Baji told them that they could go to Lishui and Taizhou at will. After that, they would find a place to get off and wander around for a few days before making other plans. Zhuangzhou and Nangong followed Chu Sikong and his companions closely. Qin Sheng would not guess that their whereabouts had been exposed, let alone know that Feng He was following them. Naturally, Chu Sikong and his companions would not know that there was another group of people behind them. Chang Baji was very cautious. Every once in a while, he would tell Qin Sheng and his companions how to move forward, in order to avoid being exposed. However, he did not expect that everything he had done would be in vain. After they turned from the Hangchong Expressway to the Shanghai-Chongqing Expressway, Chang Baji let Qin Sheng and his companions continue to drive forward. It was not until 2 o'clock in the morning that Chang Baji told them the meeting point of this trip, Huangmei County, Huanggang City. He told Gu Xiaobo to get off the expressway from Huangmei County and find a place to wait for him. Finally, Gu Xiaobo knew the meeting point. He could not help feeling overjoyed. What he needed to do now was to tell Hulan the news again. At this moment, Gu Xiaobo was driving. He noticed that there was a service station in front of them. After thinking for a while, he said, "Brother Qin, there is a service station in front of us. I want to go to the toilet and buy some Red Bull coffee to refresh myself in case of an accident when I am tired." Qin Sheng still did not think much about it. After all, they had already left Zhejiang province and arrived in Hubei province. He did not think that there would be any accident. Consequently, he said, "Okay. I also want to go to the toilet. You can buy some food at that time. I guess everyone is hungry." Hearing Qin Sheng's answer, Gu Xiaobo was secretly happy. He said in a hurry, "Okay. However, at this time we can only buy some snacks. I don't know whether there are any restaurants open for business when we arrive in Huangmei County." Qin Sheng said casually, "Let's talk about it when we arrive." A few minutes later, they drove the ordinary Toyota Highlander into the service station steadily. Gu Qingyang waited in the car while Qin Sheng and Gu Xiaobo walked into the service station. In order to cover up the anxiety in his heart, Gu Xiaobo chatted with Qin Sheng on purpose. "Brother Qin, we may have to part ways in a while. I wish you all the best in Wuhan. We can go to you as soon as possible." Qin Sheng patted Gu Xiaobo's shoulder and said, "Don't worry. When I settle down there, I will inform you to come here. With your help, I can move faster." Gu Xiaobo laughed and said, "That's for sure. When brothers are united, their sharpness can cut through gold." However, Gu Xiaobo said in his heart, "Brother Qin, I'm sorry. I'm afraid that you won't have a chance. I hope you won't blame me. I was forced to do this. After all, I have to live." After entering the restroom, Qin Sheng and Gu Xiaobo separated. Since Gu Xiaobo wanted to send a text message to Hulan, he went into the squat pit and left directly after using the restroom. At 2:30 a.m., in the CC Villa in Hangzhou City, Hulan picked up his phone immediately after he heard the text message. As expected, Gu Xiaobo's information finally came. "Senior Uncle Chang will meet us in Huangmei County. We will get off the highway in Huangmei County 1 hour later. What should I do?" Go back as soon as possible. Hulan thought for a while and replied immediately, Get off the highway and try to find a remote place. We will go there later. If anything unexpected happens, we will contact you again. After Gu Xiaobo received the text message, he finally felt at ease. He deleted the text message with a smile and left the restroom. He did not waste too much time. When Gu Xiaobo walked out of the restroom, Qin Xing had already bought the things and was waiting for him. They looked at each other and went back to the car immediately. After getting in the car, Gu Qingyang said to Gu Xiaobo, Let me drive for the rest of the way. Compared with a moment ago, Gu Xiaobo was much more energetic now. He smiled happily and said, It's okay. I will drive first. You eat something and then I will replace you later. The three of them went on the road again, heading for Huangmei County. In the living room of the CC Villa, Li Qingfeng lay on the sofa casually, waiting for the message from Hulan. Luo Changgong squinted. He was so sleepy that he almost could not stand it anymore. After Hulan replied the text message, he said to Li Qingfeng and Luo Changgong with a smile, A good show is about to start. Li Qingfeng and Luo Changgong immediately became energetic and looked at Hulan with puzzlement. Hulan ignored them. He walked to the balcony and dialed Feng He's number. They will meet Chang Baji in Huangmei County. Inform Mr. Chu that we will take action in Huangmei County. Chang Baji will be handed over to him. You should kill Qin Xing. Be careful. Got it. I promise I will complete the task. Feng He was eager to have a try. An hour later, Gu Xiaobo got off the highway from Huangmei County according to Chang Baji's arrangement. After that, he parked the car on the roadside outside the exit of the highway. They started to discuss. Brother Qin, where are we going now? Gu Xiaobo asked thoughtfully. He was afraid that Qin Xing would enter the county. He said in a hurry, Senior uncle will probably arrive soon. Let's wait nearby. If we enter the county, our foreign license plate will be too eye-catching. It will expose our identities easily. What Gu Xiaobo said was reasonable. However, he had a purpose. Gu Qingyang echoed, Brother Qin, Xiaobo is right. Qin Xing thought for a while, and thought that Gu Xiaobo was right. So he made up his mind and said, Let's wait nearby. However, he did not know that this decision almost cost him his life. Gu Xiaobo turned on his phone immediately and checked the map nearby. He found that there was a river nearby and no village. He said immediately, There is a river over there. Let's find a place by the river and wait for senior uncle. After that, Gu Xiaobo drove directly to the river before Qin Xing and Gu Qingyang agreed. Qin Xing and Gu Qingyang did not think too much. Maybe they would understand why Gu Xiaobo had betrayed them in the end. A few minutes later, Chu Xikong and Feng He finally arrived in Huangmei County. Nangong and Zhuangzhou arrived next. Chang Baji arrived last. All of them were finally going to meet each other. A storm was coming. The war was about to start. Chapter 323. Why? Qin Xing was really careless this time. It never occurred to him that Gu Xiaobo would betray him. After all, Gu Xiaobo just came out this morning and decided to leave in advance in the evening. Only a few people knew that he was going to leave. Only he knew that he would leave tomorrow. Only Chang Baji and the other 4 people knew that he was going to leave today. Qin Xing could totally trust these 5 people, including Chang Baji and Hao Lei. Gu Xiaobo and Gu Qingyang were Chang Baji's martial nephews. Qin Xing was quite satisfied with their performance. As for Tang Shi, he was accepted by Qin Xing in the end. However, Chang Baji also thought about it and let Hao Lei and Tang Shi go together. Moreover, Chang Baji's plan was perfect. They got rid of their pursuers and left Hangzhou City smoothly. Now they were in Hubei. Of course, Qin Xing let down his guard. However, didn't he feel that everything was going too smoothly? Huangmei County was the gateway to the east of Hubei. It was located on the north bank of the middle reaches of the Yangtze River. It was the junction of Hubei, Anhui, and Jiangxi provinces and Zhejiang City across the river. The most famous Huang Mei opera originated from here. The river where Qin Sheng and the others were now was a small tributary of the Yangtze River. If they went south along this river, they could directly reach the Yangtze River. At this moment, they parked the car by the river. The three of them got out of the car to smoke and waited for Chang Baji. Qin Sheng had already called Chang Baji. Chang Baji would arrive in about 10 minutes. Qin Sheng also told Chang Baji the specific location. "Brother Qin, take care of yourself in the future. If you need help, we can go there at any time." Gu Qingyang, who was not good with words, said thoughtfully. Gu Xiaobo smiled and said, "Qingyang, don't be so sad. We left Hangzhou City smoothly, didn't we? With your ability, you can make a name for yourself wherever you go. We are waiting for you to be glorious. At that time, we will go there to eat and drink well." Qin Sheng knew their characters very well. He smiled and said, "According to Lao Chang, you don't need to go back to Hangzhou City. He will take you to Xi'an for a period of time. He is deeply rooted in Xi'an. You don't need to worry about anything." Gu Qingyang said excitedly, "Yes. I've often heard my master and senior uncle talk about the life in Mount Zhongnan. I've always been looking forward to it. Now I can go there and meet the Grand Ancestor." He had always been curious about what kind of person could teach such powerful people as his master and senior uncle. Gu Xiaobo's eyes lit up when he heard about the old ancestor. He was a legendary figure that they all wanted to meet. For them, the old ancestor was like a legendary old immortal. If they could meet him once in their lives, it would be worth it. But he was destined not to see it. From the moment he agreed to the other side, they were no longer on the same path. From now on, there was no turning back. Thinking of the old immortal who was his grandfather's best friend, Qin Sheng smiled and said, "If you have the opportunity to meet the old ancestor, you will understand what kind of person has experienced and what kind of life to be so indifferent. In terms of seniority, I have to call Lao Chang senior brother, and you have to call me martial uncle. Many of my skills were taught by my ancestor." "Brother Qin, is it true?" Gu Qingyang asked in surprise. It did not occur to him that Qin Sheng had such a relationship with them. Qin Sheng chuckled and said, "Why would I lie to you? It's just that I haven't formally acknowledged him as my master." Hearing this, Gu Xiaobo could not help but tremble in his heart. He suddenly thought of a key question. If his master knew this, would he get even with him? However, there was no turning back. While Qin Sheng was chatting happily, Chu Sikong and Feng He arrived with their men. After they got off the highway, they directly parked their cars at a place not far from the entrance of the highway. They avoided this intersection in case Chang Baji would be discovered when he came out. After that, only two of Feng He's subordinates were left to stay here. When Chang Baji arrived, they would inform Chu Sikong in advance. The rest of the people, led by Chu Sikong and Feng He, went along the path to outflank Qin Sheng. Nangong and Zhuangzhou, who followed them from the expressway, happened to see this group of people getting out of their cars and heading to the east. Nangong and Zhuangzhou were very careful. They had taken off the license plate on the way, in case they would be suspicious if they found the license plate of Hangzhou City. For example, at this moment, if they saw the license plate of Hangzhou City, this group of people would definitely be suspicious. Zhuangzhou and Nangong did not dare to stay any longer. They directly drove past the place where the group of people parked their cars. After turning left at the intersection ahead, they stopped the car in a hurry. Nangong and Chang Baji looked at each other and dared not to waste any time. They went there without hesitation. By the riverside, Qin Sheng was talking with Gu Qingyang and Gu Xiaobo about their childhood, such as how he had learned martial arts from the old immortal. Gu Qingyang and Gu Xiaobo also talked about their situation in Mount Tianmu. They had not lived a good life these years. It was hard and tiring for them to learn martial arts. Now they had made some achievements. At this moment, Gu Qingyang, who was very vigilant, suddenly felt that the surrounding atmosphere seemed to be strange. Some dogs barked especially harshly. It was a distance from the village, so there should not be dogs barking. Moreover, there were some subtle noises. Brother Qin, do you feel that something is wrong? Gu Qingyang raised his hand and signaled them to stop. He pricked up his ears and listened to the sounds around. Gu Xiaobo was somewhat frightened. He knew that Feng He and the others had arrived. Consequently, he said in a trembling voice, "Qingyang, don't be so suspicious. What could be wrong in this remote place?" Qin Shing also stood up and walked toward the forest. Qin Shing also stood up and walked in the direction of the forest. He listened quietly for a few seconds. It seemed that there were footsteps approaching. He turned around and said to Gu Qingyang, "Something is wrong." It was not until this moment that Gu Qingyang voiced out his doubts. "Brother Qin, don't you feel that our journey has been too smooth? Our opponents are so powerful. How could they let us leave Hangzhou City so smoothly?" Gu Qingyang's words made Qin Shing feel anxious at this moment. He suddenly woke up and said, "We'd better be careful. Let's find another place to wait for Lao Chong." However, it was already too late. Ha ha! A burst of unscrupulous laughter rang out, which was somewhat harsh on the empty riverside. It was similar to the barking of the dogs just now. At this moment, Feng He walked out of the forest slowly with the 6 veterans. He stared at Qin Shing with a sneer and said, "Anyway, we are old friends. Is it appropriate for us to leave Hangzhou City suddenly without saying goodbye?" At this moment, Qin Shing's heart was as dead as ashes. There must be something wrong when something was abnormal. The ancients were right. It was the same this time. The more stumbling one was, the better the result might be. The more smooth one was, the more the result must be a trap. "Why are you here?" Qin Shing came back to his senses and asked this nonsense subconsciously. He was thinking about what had gone wrong on Earth. He had combed through all the programs since he came out of the Golden Coast, but he still did not find anything suspicious. Feng He walked toward Qin Shing slowly, playing with a dagger in his hand. "Why can't I be here? Weren't you very powerful that day? Why are you a stray dog now? Why do you have to escape secretly?" Feng He and the 6 men were about to surround him. Qin Shing still did not understand what had gone wrong on Earth. However, Qin Shing knew that he could not stay here for a long time. They had chased him from Hangzhou City thousands of miles away. This time, they would definitely not let him escape by chance like last time. Moreover, they had gathered the strength of 3 families. It was estimated that these people in front of him were not easy to deal with. Out of the 36 stratagems, the best strategy was to escape. If one could not win, he should run away. It was not easy for Qin Shing to come out of Hangzhou City. How could he play the hero at this moment? Consequently, Qin Shing turned around without hesitation and shouted to Gu Qingyang and Gu Xiaobo, "Get in the car and run." At this moment Qin Shing was embarrassed. Gu Xiaobo stood where he was and did not move at all. Then, he took out the car key unhurriedly and locked the car slowly in front of Qin Shing and Gu Qingyang's shocked eyes. After 2 beeps, Qin Shing and Gu Qingyang were stunned. They stared at Gu Xiaobo dumbfoundedly and did not believe what had happened in front of them. At this moment, if Qin Shing still could not figure out what had happened, he would really be out of his mind. Why did this happen in front of him? Why did Feng He appear here? What had gone wrong on Earth? The answer was right in front of them. Gu Xiaobo had betrayed them. Qin Shing began to recall the details of what had happened this night. When they had changed cars, Gu Xiaobo had wanted to pee. When they had almost arrived at Huang Mei Town, Gu Xiaobo had wanted to go to the toilet in the service area. It had been Gu Xiaobo who had been driving all the time. He had firmly controlled their initiative. In the end, it was still Gu Xiaobo who had chosen this place. Yes, Gu Xiaobo had betrayed them and completely revealed his whereabouts to Feng He's group of people. However, Qin Sheng could not figure out why. Run. Why don't you run away? Feng He shouted unscrupulously. Looking at Qin Sheng, who had lost his wits in front of him, Feng He felt so comfortable in his heart. Finally, he was going to take revenge and vent his grievances. Qin Sheng did not pay attention to Feng He. At this moment, he had no time to care about Gu Xiaobo. Gu Xiaobo's attack was so cruel that his heart was bleeding. Qin Sheng hated betrayal the most in his life, not to mention the betrayal of the person he trusted so much. He stared at Gu Xiaobo and approached him step by step. Why? Xiaobo, why? What did I do wrong to you? I can't figure it out. Gu Xiaobo was frightened by Qin Sheng's momentum and eyes. He could not help stepping back. He felt guilty and blamed himself. Trembling, he said, "Brother Qin, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Don't blame me. I really had no choice." Gu Xiaobo, you are AF * King Beast. Gu Qingyang, who had understood everything, could not stand it anymore. He roared angrily. Compared to Qin Sheng, he was more angry and sad. The one who had betrayed them was his brother, who had been with him for so many years. Gu Qingyang, who was angry, rushed to Gu Xiaobo without hesitation. He kicked Gu Xiaobo's chest directly. Gu Xiaobo did not dodge. He took this kick head-on. He was too ashamed to face Qin Sheng and Gu Qingyang. Not only had he betrayed Qin Sheng, but he had also betrayed his junior brother Gu Qingyang, who had been his junior brother for many years. Gu Qingyang was his closest brother except for his master. This kick directly sent Gu Xiaobo flying. Gu Xiaobo knelt on the ground with tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." At this moment, Gu Xiaobo felt a little regretful. But it was too late. Feng He and the others were watching this drama with great interest. Obviously, it had nothing to do with them. He enjoyed this feeling very much. It was a sense of achievement that he had toyed with his enemy. At this moment, Chang Baji had arrived. He came out of the highway slowly and walked toward the location that Qin Sheng had told him. At the same time, he called Qin Sheng. Chu Sikong received a call from his subordinate, who was guarding by the roadside. He said simply, "Mr. Chu, he is here." Chu Sikong laughed and said, "Block the road?" Chapter 324. Let's go together. I wish everyone a happy Double 11. Bye bye, chop chop chop. Those who are single, like me, ha. By the way, I have already written 1,000,000 words. The first stage is coming to an end. Please look forward to the second stage. Gu Xiaobo's betrayal directly put Qin Sheng in danger. But this time, it would not happen again, because Qin Chang'an was behind him. Zhuang Zhou and Nangong's task was to protect Qin Sheng. As for the others, they did not care about them. So, who would laugh in the end between Chu Sikong and Chang Baji? After Chang Baji turned into this path, he also felt the atmosphere was not right. It seemed that there was a quarrel over there, and he could not get through to Qin Sheng's phone. Chang Baji could not help but frown. When he put down his phone and looked forward, he suddenly stepped on the brake, because the road ahead was blocked by a few big stones. Chang Baji subconsciously felt that something bad was going to happen. When he was about to reverse the car, he found that there was another car behind him. The car directly stopped a few meters away, completely blocking his way out. Now he was in a dilemma. Chang Baji sighed. Of course, he knew what was going on. He did not expect that he still could not escape from this disaster when he was already in Hubei. He did not bother to think about what went wrong, because he had to face the crisis in front of him first. Obviously, the other side came prepared. Of course, they did not want him to help Qin Sheng. But how could Chang Baji give up? Chang Baji got out of the car slowly. When he got out, he saw a middle-aged man standing in front of the stones. The man was not tall, fat, or strong. He stood still with his hands slightly behind his back. The shadow behind him was very long under the light of the headlights, but he was not afraid of Mount Tai collapsing in front of him. Chang Baji felt that he was a dangerous man. I have been waiting for you for a long time. You are finally here. The man was Chu Sikong. Chu Sikong walked forward slowly and said. Chang Baji squinted and asked, May I know who you are? Chu Sikong. Chu Sikong was open and aboveboard. Of course, he would not hide his identity. He came straight to the point. Chang Baji's expression changed slightly as he said, It turns out that you are Mr. Chu, who is working for Third Master Wu. I have heard a lot about you. It did not occur to me that I would meet you here. I really don't know whether I am lucky or not. Mr. Chang, you're too polite. I've been in Jiangzhou for so many years, and it's been a long time since I've met someone who's worth my time. Recently, I've heard a lot of people talking about Mr. Chang, saying that Mr. Chang's skills are extraordinary, so I've come to ask for some advice. I hope Mr. Chang will not be stingy with your advice. The people of Jianghu have their own rules, and Mr. Chu has followed the rules of Jianghu. He has been polite and respectful, and has absolutely no intention of offending. Chang Baji sneered as he said, Mr. Chu, you seem to be a little hypocritical. You just want to stop me from saving Qinxing. I guess you are not the only one here tonight. Those trivial things have nothing to do with me. I just want to ask for advice from Mr. Chang. I have absolutely no other intention. I hope Mr. Chang can forgive me. Chu Sikong was still so polite that Chang Baji did not have any temper at all. Chang Baji had no time to care about anything else. The longer he stayed here, the more dangerous it would be for Qinxing. Because he had already heard the movement over there, Chang Baji directly took off his coat, bent one leg slightly forward and backward, and put his palms inward. He faced Chu Sikong and said, Since you want to ask for advice, then come on. Chu Sikong, who had been neither sad nor happy, suddenly had a burning desire in his eyes at this moment. He was like a fierce tiger who had been hungry for many days and saw an easy prey. He kicked the stone beside him, which was neither big nor small, and the stone directly flew to Chang Baji. Chang Baji just slightly tilted his head and dodged it. The stone directly smashed through the windshield behind him. When Chang Baji came to his senses, Chu Sikong had already rushed to Chang Baji as fast as lightning. Chang Baji showed a rare ferocious expression and confronted Chu Sikong without flinching. A war of Mars colliding with the earth had officially begun. By the riverside, Gu Xiaobo knelt on the ground with a pale face. His body was covered with dust and his face was covered with tears. He looked extremely embarrassed. He covered his chest and adjusted his breathing. At this moment, he had already thought it through. He had no choice and no way out. If he still hesitated and contradicted himself at this moment, he would be very tired in the future. Consequently, Gu Xiaobo made up his mind to go all the way. He stood up slowly and faced Gu Qingyang. He said, Qingyang, don't blame me. I also want to live and I also want to be outstanding. So I have no choice but to choose. Why do we have to risk our lives for Qinxing? Even if we don't have to follow him, we can still live comfortably. Gu Qingyang was so angry that he was about to explode. He asked harshly, You bastard! Do you have any conscience? Don't you know how Brother Qin treats us? Aren't you afraid that Senior Uncle Chang and our master will kill you if they know it? Gu Xiaobo was already possessed by the devil. He laughed and said, Senior Uncle Chang? I'm afraid that Senior Uncle Chang can't even protect himself. He hasn't come yet. Don't you know what's going on? As for our master, if you don't tell him, who will know? You bastard! I'm so blind. Gu Qingyang scolded angrily again. Meanwhile, he was also worried about Chang Baji. Gu Xiaobo continued to persuade him. Qingyang, it's not too late to make a choice now. As long as we kill Qinxing, Brother Feng will definitely treat us well. When we go to Shanghai, we will be like dragons returning to the sea. There will be a bright future waiting for us. If you still insist on doing things the wrong way, Qingyang, don't blame me. I can't let you go. If you leave, I will definitely die. Qin Sheng looked at Gu Xiaobo incredulously. He did not know how such an excellent young man could become like this. He was completely hopeless. Maybe this was the difference between Gu Xiaobo and Gu Qingyang. Gu Qingyang could keep his heart, while Gu Xiaobo had lost himself. Gu Qingyang sneered disdainfully. Do you think I'm like you? You're a bastard, but I'm not. Today we're brothers. If you want to kill me, show me what you've got. Have you forgotten that for so many years, you've never been a match for me? Gu Xiaobo said sadly. He could kill Qin Sheng, but he could not be cruel to Gu Qingyang. After all, Gu Qingyang was his brother for so many years, the only one he recognized. If Gu Qingyang died in his hands, he would never be able to forgive himself. Gu Qingyang was determined to fight to the death. He said, "You can have a try today." Gu Qingyang did not lose his mind because of his anger. The target of these people was Qin Sheng. Because of Gu Xiaobo's betrayal, Qin Sheng was in such a situation. Therefore, he had to protect Qin Sheng and leave here. Gu Qingyang took 2 steps back and stood in front of Qin Sheng. He said, "Brother Qin, you go first. I'll cover you. If I die, if you have a chance, remember to avenge me." People were born the same, but their experiences were different. However, only in such a desperate situation could one see who was a real man and who was a despicable villain. At this moment, Gu Xiaobo disappointed Qin Sheng, but Gu Qingyang moved him. Qin Sheng shook his head as he said, "Xiaobo, I, Qin Sheng, have lived for so many years, neither short nor long. I have experienced all that I should have experienced. I have even gone through the gates of hell a few times. Perhaps today is my final day. I'm sorry to implicate you, but I can't do such a thing to let you cover me." Gu Qingyang said somewhat incoherently, "Brother Qin, at this moment, we don't have to care so much. If we don't leave, we will all die here. If one of us leaves, he will have a way to take revenge for us. You have to go. I have to kill this scum for my master. Otherwise, I can't face you." Qin Sheng approached Gu Qingyang and suddenly grabbed his arm. He said, "If you want to go, let's go together." They turned around and jumped into the river without hesitation. Of course, Qin Sheng was not stupid. He would not fight recklessly. He had arrived in Hubei and was only 1 step away. How could he not fight for it? It was all an act just now. This scene made Feng He, who had thought the situation was settled, change his expression instantly. It did not occur to him that Qin Sheng would make such a decision. However, he sneered and said, "You want to run away in this way? You don't take me seriously. Go after them." Hardly had Feng He finished his words when all of them jumped into the river and chased after Qin Sheng and Gu Qingyang. Their mission this time was to kill Qin Sheng. If Qin Sheng ran away like this, how could they report to their superiors? Feng He did not rush to jump into the river. Instead, he said to Gu Xiaobo, "If they leave alive, you should know what will happen to you. If you can kill them, you can rest assured. When you return to Shanghai, the Yan family will not treat you badly. In the future, you will be a member of the Yan family. Even if your master comes, you don't have to be afraid." Hearing Feng He's promise, Gu Xiaobo clenched his fists and directly jumped into the river. He would not let Qin Sheng leave alive. Feng He followed him into the river and chased after him. Nangong and Zhuangzhou, who had taken a detour to avoid Chu Sikong, were now in the woods behind them. They had witnessed everything that had happened in front of them. They also saw that Chu Sikong and Chang Baji had started to fight. "What should we do?" Nangong looked at Zhuangzhou and asked. Zhuangzhou said calmly, "What can we do? Jump into the river and chase after them. Find a chance to kill them and let young master leave safely." "Are we just going to ignore that Chang Baji?" Nangong frowned. Zhuangzhou chuckled and said, Don't underestimate Changbaji. He is much more powerful than you think. It's hard to say who will win between him and Chu Sikong. Hearing this, Nangong felt relieved. Let's go. If we don't leave now, we won't be able to catch up. Zhuang Zhou sneered as he looked at the scene of people chasing each other in the river. These people thought that Qin Sheng was their prey, but they did not know that they were the real prey. The people in the river probably wouldn't notice him now that he was a distance away. However, Zhuang Zhou still carefully bent his body and slowly approached the river. Nangong looked at the beautiful clothes on his body and mumbled a few words. What's more, on such a cold day, the river should be even colder. It was not a good thing to let a woman stay in such a cold river. Chapter 325. Being equal. When God was about to bestow a great responsibility on a man, he would suffer several setbacks first. Qin Sheng could only comfort himself in this way. However, it was impossible for him to accept his fate. If he had accepted his fate, he would have died in the previous disasters. Because he refused to accept his fate, he could hold on until now. Therefore, he would still fight for it this time. For him, as long as he was alive, he would make it. At this moment, Qin Sheng and Gu Qingyang were running for their lives in the icy river. Fortunately, this was a small tributary and the water level was low, so the river was relatively smooth. If it was summer, people who were not good at swimming would probably get into trouble. Behind Qin Sheng and Gu Qingyang, Feng He, Gu Xiaobo, and the other 6 masters were chasing them. Qin Sheng was good at swimming. When he was a child at the foot of Zhongnan Mountains, he often practiced in the reservoir lake. His grandfather said that if he learned more skills, he would have more assurance in the future. Today it finally came in handy. Gu Qingyang was not good at swimming, but some of the people behind him were not good at swimming. Only 3 people were chasing them closely. Therefore, after Qin Sheng and Gu Qingyang went ashore, they directly rushed into the shelter forest on the opposite side, followed by the 3 men. Feng He and Gu Xiaobo arrived later, and the other 2 men were late. They did not go ashore until Feng He and Gu Xiaobo entered the shelter forest. When they were about to follow them, Zhuang Zhou and Nangong had already gone ashore. They looked at each other and nodded. After communicating with their eyes, they confirmed each other's target. Then they rushed forward. The 2 men did not expect that there would be other people, especially their enemies. They were exhausted in the water, so they were not vigilant. Therefore, Zhuang Zhou and Nangong had a chance. When they sensed the danger behind them, Zhuang Zhou and Nangong had already arrived in front of them. Zhuang Zhou and Nangong were so powerful that only a big shot like Chu Sikong could escape unscathed in such a situation. Even if Feng He was present, he would also be in danger. Therefore, even if they were masters, they could not reach the level of Chu Sikong and Feng He. Zhuang Zhou took advantage of the situation and advanced. It was unknown whether he had calculated which direction the man would turn in or whether it was luck, but Zhuang Zhou threw a hook at the man's armpit and hit the man's chin. The man was stunned and lost 2 teeth. His mouth was full of blood. Before he could come back to his senses, Zhuang Zhou grabbed him by the neck and knocked him out with his knee. His face was unrecognizable. Dying before achieving victory, the hero's robes are filled with tears. This guy had met the big boss, Zhuang Zhou, before he had even fought with Qin Sheng. He had been defeated in one move. This should be the first time in his life. When he wakes up, he will probably reflect on himself and learn to swim well in the future. This way, he will not fall behind, and he will not meet Zhuang Zhou. Compared to him, the guy next to him was not worse off, because his opponent was a woman. Hidden under Nangong's beautiful appearance was an ice-cold killing intent. Don't think that all beauties were delicate and weak. Sometimes this was just an advantage to numb the opponent. When you were feeling tender and protective towards the fairer sex, a beauty would give you a fatal blow. Nangong was like that. With a run-up, she leaped easily and wrapped her legs around the man's neck. Using inertia and momentum, she used death coil to pin the man to the ground. Then, she threw 2 consecutive punches, each one landing on the back of the man's head. The man didn't even see who his opponent was before his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Nangong smiled innocently and said, "Done?" Zhuangzhou nodded at her. Of course, he believed in Nangong's strength. This woman was not easy to deal with. Zhuangzhou did not dare to waste any more time. He said in a low voice, "Go after her." Then they rushed into the protective forest. Next, it was a game of cat and mouse. At this time, on the other side of the river, the fight between Chang Baji and Chu Sikong had completely broken out. It was unknown whether Chang Baji and Chu Sikong had hidden their strength or they were evenly matched. So far, both of them had a winner and a loser, and neither of them could kill the other. After all, at this level, the disparity of strength was not very big. Unless the other revealed a fatal flaw, it was possible to kill the other with one strike. Chu Sikong and Chang Baji were probing each other when they fought at the beginning. Chu Sikong belonged to the Southern Martial Arts School, which emphasized on abrupt force and speed. To put it simply, he was a master of technique. His Wing Chun Kung Fu had been perfected. Coupled with his unknown leg movements, Chang Baji felt a lot of pressure. Chang Baji suffered a lot and his shoulders were a little sore now. However, Chang Baji belonged to the Northern School, which emphasized on big movements and strength. Every time he fought, he was like a fierce tiger coming down from the mountain. Chu Sikong did not dare to confront him directly, because he would be at a disadvantage if he did. Even so, there were 2 times when Chang Baji failed to make a good judgment, and Chu Sikong's ribs were hit hard. "Chang Baji, you deserve your reputation." "Awesome, awesome." Chu Sikong was a man who respected all his opponents. Moreover, Chang Baji's strength was really not simple. He was amazed by Chang Baji's reverse waist punch. At this moment, Chang Baji was more stressed than Chu Sikong, because Chu Sikong did not have other burdens. Chang Baji had to worry about Qin Shing and Chu Sikong. Obviously, Qin Shing had been in danger. Chang Baji did not know whether he was alive or not, so he was a little anxious. "Mr. Chu, you are also awesome. Yangtze River Delta is indeed a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons." Chang Baji squinted and responded. Chu Sikong's pressure just now made him feel stressed, and his arms were still a little painful. Chu Sikong did not seem to be in a hurry. He asked, "May I know which school you learned Baji boxing and 8 trigrams palm from?" "I am not talented and weak, so I dare not say my master's name. I am afraid that I will make a fool of him," Chang Baji said perfunctorily. This was not a lie. When they went out, they could never say their master's name, because it was very likely to disturb their master's cultivation. Chu Sikong laughed and said, "You are really modest. If you are not qualified, I really can't imagine how many people are better than you." Chang Baji sneered and said, "Mr. Chu, are you buying time? I, Chu Sikong, will not do that. Other people's affairs have nothing to do with me. Today, I just want to fight with you," Chu Sikong said disapprovingly. He really thought so. Without so many conspiracies, he did not care about Qin Shing's life or death. Even if Qin Shing ran away, it had nothing to do with him. Chang Baji said angrily, "Then let's fight again." Before Chang Baji finished his words, he had already attacked again. He had to defeat Chu Sikong in the shortest time, because he really could not afford to waste time. Chu Sikong was eager to have a try. He was waiting for Chang Baji. Today, he really let Chang Baji fight to his heart's content. It was estimated that he would not have such a chance in a short time. When Chang Baji was half a meter away from Chu Sikong, he threw a unloading chopping punch at Chu Sikong's head. Chu Sikong dodged it decisively. However, Chang Baji's move was a feint. He lifted his knee and hit Chu Sikong's waist. Chu Sikong hurriedly used his hands to block Chong Baji's knee and then pushed it out with 1-inch force. He could not let Chong Baji control the rhythm. Instead, he had to control the rhythm. When Chong Baji stepped back, Chu Sikong immediately kicked Chong Baji's right leg. Chong Baji immediately blocked it with his foot. The two of them fought back and forth for this territory for several rounds. Seeing that he still could not take advantage of Chong Baji, Chu Sikong immediately changed his way of fighting. He suddenly threw a punch at Chong Baji's neck artery. Chong Baji stretched out his hand to block it. Chu Sikong was not in a hurry. He started his Wing Chun routine. Chong Baji began to fall into Chu Sikong's rhythm. Of course, Chong Baji would not allow it. He could only deal with Chu Sikong by hurting himself at the same time, because Chu Sikong was faster and Chong Baji was stronger. Therefore, when Chu Sikong punched Chong Baji's right shoulder, Chong Baji took the opportunity to dodge sideways. Chu Sikong kicked Chong Baji. Originally, Chong Baji had thought that Chong Baji would dodge the kick. However, Chong Baji used his whole body as a weapon. He exerted force on one leg and leaned forward, directly bumping into Chu Sikong. Chu Sikong already felt that something was wrong. However, it was too late. His whip kick hit Chong Baji's back, and Chong Baji's shoulder hit him in front of his eyes. Chu Sikong was not afraid in the face of danger. He quickly blocked with one arm in front of his body. However, it could only buy him some time to reduce Chong Baji's strength. Finally, he was knocked away by Chong Baji. Chong Baji's back also suffered a heavy blow. Chu Sikong covered his chest with one hand, while Chong Baji hunched his back slightly. Both of their breaths were a bit messy. After all, they were not playing house. Instead, they were fighting against each other with real strength. If they were not careful, they might be seriously injured. They looked at each other and fell into silence again. Chong Baji's state of mind became more and more chaotic, which was a sign of danger. In a fight between masters, the calmer one was, the greater the chance of winning would be. In the protective forest across the river, Qin Shing and Gu Qingyang tried to escape. However, they could not get rid of the pursuers. Moreover, the pursuers were getting closer and closer. Once they caught up with them, neither of them would be able to escape. Gu Qingyang did not want to be a burden to Qin Shing. He directly pulled Qin Shing and said, "Brother Qin, give me a chance. Let me stay behind. Otherwise we will all die here." "Qingyang, hold on. It will be dawn in 2 more hours. We can escape then." Qin Shing would not give up his brothers easily, let alone his brothers who had gone through the crisis with him. Gu Qingyang directly stopped and said, "Brother Qin, don't be indecisive. I won't hate you. If you don't leave, I will hate you. You are a man who will do great things. You should not die here. Only if you are alive can you avenge me." Qingyang. Qin Shing could not bear to see him die like this. Not everyone could face death like this. Not everyone was like Lu Sun, who said that a real warrior dared to face the bleak life and the dripping blood. Most people in this world were ordinary people, who were afraid of death. When death came, they would only try to survive. Gu Qingyang was somewhat angry. He almost shouted at Qin Shing, "Brother Qin, let's go." This was the first time that Gu Qingyang had behaved like this. Qin Shing had never seen Gu Qingyang like this since he had known him. He remembered that when he had met Gu Qingyang for the first time, this big boy had gone to the foot of the mountain to pick him up. They had not talked on the way. Later, when he had come to Hangzhou, he had been doing things dutifully. He had never made any mistakes. He was quiet, honest, and kind. When he had been Qin Shing's driver, he had been very satisfied. He did not talk much but could do things well. At this moment, Qin Shing saw the not quiet side of this big boy. He did not know what Gu Qingyang was thinking at this moment, but he felt very tormented, contradictory, and uncomfortable. This kind of uncomfortable feeling made him feel very wrong. He did not know how to choose because this kind of choice was too difficult. Go! Gu Qingyang shouted at the top of his lungs. Hearing this, Qin Shing's eyes turned red. He tried hard to hold back his tears. Finally, he turned around and left. Chapter 326. Fratricide. Qin Shing used to face these setbacks and difficulties alone most of the time. Maybe it was because of his luck that he could escape from death every time. However, no one had 9 lives. There would come a day when one's luck would be used up. For example, last time at Mount Zhihua, he was so close to dying. Today's situation was even more tragic than the last time on Mount Zhihua because he never expected that the brother he trusted the most by his side would betray him out of the blue and even try to kill him. Qin Shing's feeling was self-evident when he was betrayed by his brother. However, God did not give up on Qin Shing completely. Gu Xiaobo betrayed him, but Gu Qingyang moved him. However, Qin Shing might owe Gu Qingyang for the rest of his life. Knowing that it was death, but still going to die, this was not something that just anyone could do. After all, people only had one life. If they died, they would really die, and there would be nothing left. Gu Qingyang exchanged his life for Qin Shing's, which showed his righteousness and loyalty. Maybe he wanted to make up for the harm caused by Gu Xiaobo's betrayal. Qin Shing finally made up his mind to leave. As Gu Qingyang said, if he did not leave, he would not be able to leave. Based on their strength, it was impossible for them to face Gu Xiaobo and Feng He. Since they dared to kill Qin Shing, they must have made sufficient preparations. Feng He would not make the same mistake again. Moreover, he knew Qin Shing's strength. After Qin Shing turned around and left, Gu Qingyang also walked in the opposite direction without hesitation. Every step he took was closer to death. It could be seen how heavy each step was. As expected, Gu Qingyang soon met the 3 men who were chasing him. They looked at each other for a while and then made the wisest choice, which was to leave one of them to deal with Gu Qingyang and the other 2 to continue chasing Qin Shing. When the 2 men were about to chase after Qin Shing, of course, Gu Qingyang stood in their way. However, the other man who stayed behind was not a weakling. He dashed toward Gu Qingyang directly. His target was very clear, which was to take Gu Qingyang down. Consequently, the 2 of them started to fight in an instant. Although Gu Qingyang's strength was not as good as Gu Xiaobo's, it was still more than enough for him to deal with the man in front of him. Being meticulous, he pressed forward step by step. With a set of domineering consecutive punches, the man was defeated again and again. In the end, he could only force Gu Qingyang to retreat by sweeping his legs. Gu Qingyang wanted to chase after the 2 men. He definitely could not let them catch up with Qin Shing. However, the 2 men did not give up. It seemed that they had figured out Gu Qingyang's pattern. They started to avoid the strong points and hit the weak points. Gu Qingyang could not escape from them all the time. What had happened today made Gu Qingyang very angry. The impact and lethality of Gu Xiaobo's betrayal to him were stronger and deadlier than anyone else's. This was because Gu Xiaobo was his brother since he was young. Other than his master, Gu Xiaobo was the closest person to him. Today, Gu Xiaobo had betrayed them. Gu Xiaobo had not only betrayed Qin Shing, but he had also betrayed Gu Qingyang. Gu Qingyang could neither accept nor understand this kind of betrayal. He thought he knew Gu Xiaobo very well, but it turned out that he didn't know him at all. He knew that people would change, especially after entering this bustling big city, but he didn't expect it to change so fast. It was really hard to figure out people's hearts. Therefore, Gu Qingyang's calm mood had already been disturbed. Being dragged by this man, Qin Shing became more and more dangerous. Finally, Gu Qingyang lost his temper completely. He rushed to the man like a hungry tiger. He took the man's foot and directly grabbed the man's shoulder. He exerted strength in his legs and threw the man out fiercely. The man hit the tree and fell to the ground heavily. Gu Qingyang wanted to chase after him immediately. However, the man got up quickly and rushed to Gu Qingyang again. It seemed that the more he fought, the braver he became. He did not give Gu Qingyang any chance to escape at all. Consequently, the two of them were entangled again. When Gu Qingyang finally found a chance to severely injure this man, Feng He and Gu Xiaobo finally arrived. Feng He threw a dagger at Gu Qingyang from a distance. Gu Qingyang had been blinded by anger. When he felt that something was wrong, it was too late. The dagger was stuck in Gu Qingyang's lower back. Gu Qingyang's heart was filled with anger. Being attacked sneakily, Gu Qingyang was furious. He hit the man in front of him directly with his elbow and knocked him to the ground. He turned his head slowly and looked at the two men in front of him. One of them was his brother, Gu Xiaobo, who used to be the most familiar to him but was now the most unfamiliar to him. Gu Qingyang's smile and eyes were somewhat sarcastic. He laughed at Gu Xiaobo without any scruples. At the same time, he shouted angrily, "You want to kill me? Come on, come on." Feng He squinted. He had no time to be entangled with this small fry in front of him. His target was Qin Sheng. Consequently, he said to Gu Xiaobo directly, "Kill him." Gu Xiaobo's expression was painful, and his eyes were complicated. It was really difficult for him to kill his brother with his own hands. If he had been asked to kill Qin Sheng, he would not have hesitated. After all, he had only known Qin Sheng for a short time and did not have a deep relationship with him. Moreover, it was a relationship of interest. However, Gu Qingyang was different. Gu Qingyang was his senior brother, who was even closer than his own brother. How much determination did he have to make to kill Gu Qingyang with his own hands? It was destined to be a stain in his life. "You've changed. You've really changed. I suddenly feel that I don't know you anymore. However, don't worry. Those who commit unjust deeds will bring about their own destruction. I believe that Brother Qin will definitely avenge me." Gu Qingyang laughed unscrupulously. Feng He was somewhat irritated. He snorted coldly and said, "Go and kill him. If you don't kill him, as long as you let him leave alive, he will definitely kill you." Gu Xiaobo squinted and walked slowly toward Gu Qingyang. Gu Qingyang covered his lower back with one hand. He did not dare to take out the dagger. Otherwise, he would lose blood quickly. "If you want to kill me, come on." Gu Qingyang stared at Gu Xiaobo and said. It was obvious that he looked down on Gu Xiaobo, which made Gu Xiaobo feel very uncomfortable. Gu Xiaobo shouted loudly. He did not care about anything else anymore. Without hesitation, he rushed toward Gu Qingyang. He wanted to vent the resentment in his heart unscrupulously. It did not occur to him that a simple choice would lead to the current situation. Originally, he did not think like this. He just wanted to stay in Hangzhou. He did not want to leave the prosperous life in the big city. He was even more reluctant to leave the girl he liked. Why was it so difficult? Why did it become like this? Once a person was possessed by the devil and went astray, it was very likely that he would not turn back at all, because the price of turning back was too high. Gu Xiaobo was like this. When Gu Xiaobo rushed toward Gu Qingyang, he kicked Gu Qingyang's shoulder. Gu Xiaobo's strength was completely above Gu Qingyang's. Therefore, Gu Qingyang was not a match for Gu Xiaobo at all. He was kicked away directly and fell heavily on the ground. Even if he had to die, Gu Qingyang would choose to die in a spectacular way instead of being trampled on by his opponent. Therefore, he clenched his teeth, laughed out loud, and stood up. He dashed toward Gu Xiaobo with an imposing manner as if he was not afraid of death. This was his most direct response to Gu Xiaobo. When Feng He saw this scene of fratricide, he finally felt relieved. He hurriedly took the remaining man and continued to chase after Qin Sheng. During this period they did not waste too much time. Moreover, there were two more powerful men chasing after Qin Sheng. This time, Qin Sheng could not even think about leaving alive. But was it really so? After all, Nangong and Zhuangzhou had already come in. It was uncertain whether Feng He could leave or not. In the forest, Gu Qingyang, who had been seriously injured, wanted to kill Gu Xiaobo regardless of the price. He wanted to eliminate this scum for his master. Even if he could not kill Gu Xiaobo today, he believed that Gu Xiaobo would not live, because someone would avenge him eventually. If Brother Qin died, there would be Senior Uncle. If Senior Uncle died, there would be Master. If Master died, there would be other senior brothers. He did not believe that Gu Xiaobo could live. However, he was not a match for Gu Xiaobo at all. Moreover, he was seriously injured. Therefore, he kept attacking Gu Xiaobo regardless of the price. In the end, he fell down again and again. Gu Xiaobo did not save Gu Qingyang's face. He had been possessed by the devil. He just wanted to kill Gu Qingyang and then Qin Sheng, so that he could hide everything that had happened today. Otherwise, he would be killed if others knew it. Everyone was selfish. Most people would definitely choose others when they had to die, let alone a coward like Gu Xiaobo. Therefore, when Gu Qingyang attacked again, Gu Xiaobo pulled out the dagger without hesitation. After that, he turned around and stabbed the dagger into Gu Qingyang's back. After that, he punched Gu Qingyang heavily to the ground. Gu Qingyang knelt on the ground. He had no fighting capacity. He had never thought that he would die so early. He had never thought that he would die here, let alone in the hands of Gu Xiaobo. Gu Xiaobo laughed crazily and said, "Why? Why? What does Qin Sheng have that makes you work so hard for him? You forced me to do this. If you don't die, I will die. So don't hate me. Really, don't hate me." Gu Xiaobo laughed crazily. His eyes no longer had the brilliance of the past. He finally lost himself completely. The teenager who used to be a teenager would never come back. Gu Qingyang laughed happily and said, "You have your way, and I have mine. People who walk different paths cannot make plans together. You are destined to be a villain in this life, a despicable and shameless villain. I believe that you will definitely regret what you have done today." "No, I won't regret it. Gu Xiaobo will never regret it," Gu Xiaobo shouted angrily. Then he pulled out the dagger again, and stabbed it into Gu Qingyang's heart crazily. Once, twice, thrice. Gu Qingyang finally fell to the ground in front of his brother. This time, he did not stand up. He fell to the ground completely. He died in the hands of his brother, who was like a brother to him. He was unwilling to die in peace. It was estimated that he could not figure out why he had died like this. Gu Qingyang was dead, but Gu Xiaobo did not feel happy, because the look in Gu Qingyang's eyes before he died terrified him. He knelt on the ground, holding his head in his hands, and screamed hysterically. This was his brother. How could he kill him? Chapter 327. Chapter 326 Fall. What was supposed to be an uneventful night became turbulent in the second half of the night. Gu Xiaobo's betrayal had posed a fatal threat to Qin Sheng and his companions. The three of them had fallen into the encirclement of their opponents. Now, in order to protect Qin Sheng, Gu Qingyang had risked his life to let Qin Sheng leave. However, in the end, Gu Qingyang had died in this strange place that he had never known before. The miserable young man died in a foreign land. How sad. Gu Xiaobo knelt on the ground. From this moment on, he was no longer the Gu Xiaobo he used to be. From now on, he would only keep going in the wrong direction. As he said, he might feel guilty, but he would not regret it, because he was a conceited person. After a long time, Gu Xiaobo finally stood up slowly. His expression was a bit hideous, and his eyes were bloodshot. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fist. He bowed to Gu Qingyang's body 3 times slowly. Then he rushed into the night without hesitation, because he still wanted to kill Qin Sheng. He could not let Qin Sheng leave like this. Otherwise, he would be the one lying on the ground soon. On the tree-shaded path, the fight between Chang Baji and Chu Xikong was coming to an end. As time went by, the inextricable situation gradually became clear. Chang Baji, whose mind was in a mess, was seriously injured. However, Chu Sikong's situation was not very optimistic. He was only a little better than Chang Baji. When they fought again, Chang Baji was hit in the abdomen by Chu Sikong's abrupt punch. Chang Baji retreated a few steps in succession. Blood trickled down from the corners of his mouth. There were more injuries on his face and body. His clothes were torn into several pieces. He looked a little embarrassed. Chang Baji, you are just SOSO, Chu Sikong said with slight disdain. Chang Baji stared at Chu Sikong and sneered. Can you really kill me? Not necessarily. If you hadn't set up this trap, you would have lost if we had a real fight. You know it very well. Chu Sikong seldom lost, and he was a man of Jiang who rules. Therefore, when he fought with a master like Chang Baji, he had to win fair and square, and he had to make Chang Baji accept his defeat wholeheartedly. Therefore, Chang Baji's words stimulated Chu Sikong. After all, if Chang Baji had not been distracted, no one would know who would have won. Therefore, after pondering for a while, Chu Sikong felt that the battle over there should be over. He did not need to pin down Chang Baji anymore. Even if Chang Baji rushed over there now, he would not be able to do anything. If Chang Baji stayed and fought to the death with him, then even if he could kill Chang Baji, he would have to pay an absolute price. Moreover, he did not want anyone to help him. Therefore, Chu Sikong chuckled and said, "Okay. Since you said so, let's call it a day. Otherwise, I will have an unfair advantage. Once you've settled your matters, we'll find another time to exchange pointers. I don't believe you'll have any more excuses next time. Are you sure you want me to go? Right now, you have the advantage. If you want to kill me, it's a rare opportunity. But after today, that might not be the case," sneered Chang Baji. Chu Sikong said happily, "Ha ha ha, I, Chu Sikong, have never been such a person. If I want to defeat you, I must do it fair and square. Okay. See you later." Chang Baji did not know much about Chu Sikong, but he did not expect that Chu Sikong was such a person. Chu Sikong had a strong sense of Jianghu. Moreover, he was the kind of old-fashioned Jianghu man who abided by the rules and cared about morality and feelings. He was not like the group of young people nowadays, who were cruel and merciless at all costs. If they were not rivals, Chang Baji would have hoped to make friends with this kind of experienced Jianghu man. Moreover, based on their characters, they could really become friends. However, it was a pity that they were rivals, not enemies. Chang Baji bowed to Chu Sikong respectfully. Chu Sikong also bowed back politely. This was the rule of the Jianghu man. After that, Chang Baji hurried in the direction of the riverside. The battle between Chang Baji and Chu Sikong finally came to an end. It was like Mars colliding with the Earth. In the end, they shook hands and made up. They would fight again another day, but there was no clear winner. However, if they really persisted until the end, Chang Baji would definitely lose. And Chu Sikong would definitely pay a heavy price. As for the protective forest, the battle had also come to an end. It was because Qin Shing had run away. Feng He and Gu Xiaobo were delayed because of Gu Qingyang's matter, which gave Zhuang Zhou and Nangong an opportunity. They caught up with Qin Shing quickly and blocked the way of the two men behind him. They made them stay, which gave Qin Shing enough time. When the two men were about to catch up with Qin Shing, Nangong and Zhuang Zhou stood in front of them. The two men were extremely surprised because there were only 4 people on Qin Shing's side tonight. Chang Baji was blocked by Mr. Chu. Gu Xiaobo had betrayed them. Gu Qingyang was left behind. Qin Shing was right in front of them. It was a dark and windy night. Who were the couple in front of them? Although they could not see their faces clearly, it seemed that there was no information about them in the intelligence. What on earth was going on? Although the leading man knew that the couple in front of him were definitely not friends but rivals, he still asked subconsciously, "Who are you?" Nangong sneered and said, "You are not qualified to know." The man beside her threatened, If you don't want to die, leave quickly. They also had the strength to threaten them. After all, they were carefully selected masters. If they encountered ordinary opponents, they would definitely be able to kill them. Nangong laughed and said, "Die? For so many years, I have heard this sentence many times. Now I am still standing here, but they have already gone to hell." No matter whether what she said was true or not, the two men were subconsciously afraid of the two strange enemies who had appeared inexplicably. Therefore, after hearing what she said, they felt even less confident. Before the fight started, they had already lost their momentum. As Nangong spoke, Zhuangzhou, who was beside him, kept silent. For them, the two men in front of them were already prey that would die. What was the point of talking to people who were about to die? The two men looked at each other. No matter who the other party was, as long as they stood in their way, they were enemies. To deal with enemies, there was only one word: kill. Therefore, the two men stopped talking nonsense, otherwise they would waste more time. Therefore, they attacked decisively. They rushed toward Zhuangzhou and Nangong, holding the short knives that they had prepared in advance. Zhuangzhou and Nangong consciously had a clear division of labor. Each of them chose an opponent. Nangong took the lead to make contact with the opponent. After he dodged several assassination attempts from the opponent, he turned around nimbly and slapped the man in the face angrily. Then he said in a coquettish tone, "Didn't your mother teach you not to bully women?" The force of the slap was so great that the corner of the man's mouth bled and 5 deep handprints were left on his face. Even though it was night time, it could be seen clearly. The man was so angry that he almost vomited blood. With a roar, he charged at Nangong again. Zhuangzhou, who was on the other side, was not as naughty as Nangong. He was more pragmatic, and only wanted to kill the opponent in a short time. Therefore, he directly punched the opponent's ribs without reservation. The two of them were not at the same level at all. Therefore, the process and the result were self-evident. If they were at the level of Chong Baji and Chu Sikong, it was estimated that there would be no result until they fought for more than 10 minutes. When the opponent rushed toward Chong Baji again despite the piercing pain in his chest, he had already lost his footing. Chong Baji kicked his calf and then grabbed his arm. Taking advantage of the situation, Chong Baji twisted the man's arm, which was holding the knife, directly. The man was in so much pain that he felt like his heart was being torn apart. Feng He, the other man, and Gu Xiaobo, who were not far away, all heard this sound. Because it was not Qin Shing's voice, they instantly felt that something was wrong and immediately came over. Zhuangzhou did not hesitate anymore. He held the opponent's head and hit him several times with his knee, making him lose the chance to fight back. In the end, he grabbed the man's arm and directly stabbed the short knife into his abdomen. After this series of movements, Zhuangzhou quickly stepped back, not letting the blood stain his body at all. The man was not reconciled to this and slowly fell to the ground. His situation was similar to that of the two men on the shore at the beginning. It was a pity that the two men were lucky. They were only knocked out and were not seriously injured. However, the two men were killed here. At this time, Nangong was almost finished. After all, there was a great disparity in strength. Even if Hulan and Li Qingfeng found some powerful masters, they would not be as powerful as Chu Sikong and Feng He. Therefore, in the face of opponents like Nangong and Zhuangzhou, their strength was not worth mentioning at all. Therefore, when they encountered Nangong and Zhuangzhou, they were doomed. Nangong was relatively agile and had a strong reaction. The man could not threaten Nangong at all. He was completely beaten by Nangong and had no strength to fight back. In the end, Nangong was not as cruel as Zhuangzhou. Instead, he directly twisted the man's neck and completely ended the battle. Everything had been settled. Nangong looked at Zhuangzhou, who looked serious, and said, "As for the rest, do we continue to kill them?" Zhuangzhou shook his head and said, "Girl, your killing intent is too strong. It's not good. If killing was an art, Nangong had already reached the realm of a master. Nangong curled her lips and said, "I just want to finish the task." Zhuang Zhou said casually, "All right. After such a long time, I guess Qin Xing has already escaped. We don't need to kill more people. Moreover, it's almost dawn. Let's give them time to clean up the mess. We only need to hide in the dark." Hearing Zhuang Zhou's words, Nangong nodded silently. In the end, she and Zhuang Zhou quickly disappeared in the night. When Feng He arrived, Nangong and Zhuang Zhou had already left. Seeing the tragic scene in front of him, Feng He was shocked. The two men who had chased after Qin Xing died here. They were not weak at all. It was impossible for Qin Xing to kill them in a short time. Then what happened? Could it be that Chang Baji did it? That was impossible. Chang Baji was entangled with Mr. Chu. According to his understanding of Chang Baji's strength, he and Mr. Chu could at most be tied. It was impossible for him to kill Mr. Chu in such a short time. Then who on earth did it? Feng He was lost in deep thought. However, he was somewhat disappointed. No matter who did it, Qin Xing had already disappeared. The possibility of catching up with him was very slim, not to mention killing him. How could he explain it to his superiors when he went back? Chapter 328. He could only go there. Chapter 327. Killing Qin Xing. This was a three-way encirclement and suppression of Qin Xing. The plan was flawless. First of all, in order to avoid Third Master Wu's disturbance, the Yan family and the Yan family reached an agreement and used Third Master Wu to kill Qin Xing. Second, they forced Qin Xing to leave Hangzhou with overwhelming advantages, which was more convenient to solve the problem in other places. Third, they asked Chu Xikong to pin down Chang Baji, who was the most threatening person on Qin Xing's side. Finally, Xiao Lili persuaded Gu Xiaobo to betray them and became their most important chess piece. In the end, they set up a trap in Huang Mei Town and wanted to kill Qin Xing with overwhelming advantages. Unfortunately, because of the appearance of Zhuang Zhou and Nangong, they lost everything. The situation in Mount Jiuhua did not happen again. At this moment, Qin Xing had completely disappeared in the night. The bodies of the two men who chased after Qin Xing were lying there coldly. Feng He was a little scared and worried, because if he could not find Qin Xing, he would be punished severely when he went back. Because he knew that this plan was made by Second Uncle. Second Uncle was not as easy to deal with as young master. Now he was the helmsman of the Yan family, and he would definitely be impartial. However, Gu Xiaobo was more nervous and afraid than Feng He, because if Qin Xing really left, he would definitely come back to take revenge. Even if Qin Xing did not take revenge, as long as Qin Xing told the news to Senior Uncle Chang, those people in the Yan family would definitely find him and kill him mercilessly. Therefore, no matter what, they had to find Qin Xing. Gu Xiaobo was afraid that Feng He would give up, so he hurried to persuade him. "Brother Feng, we can't let him go. Maybe he is in front of us. We have to continue to chase after him." Of course, Gu Xiaobo knew what he was thinking. Although they were worried about different things, they were both concerned about Qin Xing's life. Therefore, Gu Xiaobo did not hesitate anymore and said, "You stay here and deal with the bodies. Gu Xiaobo, you and I continue to chase after him. Kill him without mercy." "Okay," Gu Xiaobo said ruthlessly. They set off immediately, leaving only the man to clean up the mess. After all, there were 3 bodies here. If they were found tomorrow, it would cause a lot of trouble. In the tree-lined path, Chang Baji had already left. After Chang Baji left, Chu Xikong bent over and coughed several times. Finally, he spat out a mouthful of extravasated blood in his chest. From this, it could be seen that Chu Xikong did not gain any advantage in today's battle. It was only because Chang Baji was multitasking that he gained the upper hand. At this time, the 2 men who had been following Chu Xikong rushed over and asked, "Mr. Chu, are you all right?" Chu Xikong waved his hand. Then he straightened up and said, "I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me. Call them and ask them what's going on." "Then, are we not going to kill this man?" the subordinate asked with a frown. Chu Sikong snorted as he said, "What do you know?" Chu Sikong's subordinate immediately stopped talking and had to call Chang Baji to ask about the situation there. However, Chu Sikong was lost in thought. He knew that the thing between him and Chang Baji would not end in this way. They would definitely meet again. However, he did not know what would happen next time. After Chang Baji left this place, he called Qin Xing, Gu Qingyang and Gu Xiaobo. However, the phones of the others had been flooded and could not be used. Consequently, he could not get in touch with them at all. When he rushed to the riverside, he found that Qin Xing's car was parked there. However, there was no one in the car. Chang Baji realized that the situation was not good. He looked around and saw no one. Could it be that something bad had happened to them? Chang Baji was a little panicked. No matter what, he had to find a way to find them. Consequently, Chang Baji had to drag his seriously injured body to continue looking for Qin Xing and the others. At this time, Qin Xing had already run away. After all, Gu Qingyang had bought time for him at the cost of his life. Zhuangzhou and Nangong had helped him solve the biggest problem. Based on Qin Xing's ability, if he could not run away, he would deserve to die here. After Nangong and Zhuangzhou solved the problem, they chased after Qin Xing for 10 minutes. However, they still could not find him. This place was not as remote as the shelter forest. They could see the village streets and so on. Consequently, Zhuangzhou and Nangong stopped and began to discuss the countermeasures. After thinking about it, Zhuangzhou made a decision and said, "We can leave now. He should be safe now." Nangong looked a little embarrassed. After all, she was all wet. It was still cold in the early winter. However, she was more concerned about Qin Xing's safety. Consequently, she said, "Don't continue to chase after him? What if something bad happens to him? I want to chase after them, but where do we go? It's like looking for a needle in a haystack. Like I said, if he escapes, he will definitely use another identity. At that time, we will know where he is." Zhuangzhou shook his head and smiled bitterly. In today's society, it was difficult to do anything without an identity. Qin Xing definitely would not use his real name. Instead, he would definitely use the identity that he had used in Shaman. Only then could he escape completely. Hearing that, Nangong could only follow Zhuangzhou's arrangement. So they took a detour and returned to the car, preparing to go to Wuhan overnight. Actually, they did not know that Qin Sheng's original destination was Wuhan. It was just that Wuhan was the nearest provincial city to Huangmei County. Moreover, since Qin Sheng and his companions could gather here, it was possible that they would go to Wuhan. When they returned to the car, they immediately used their spare phone to call Beijing to report everything that had happened tonight. At this moment, it was almost daybreak, and the sun was already rising in the east. However, in the Sihiyuan of the Qin family in Sizhou City, Qin Chang'an was not asleep. Gongsun had been guarding by his side. Although Gongsun had urged him several times, Qin Chang'an did not intend to rest. After all, as a father, how could he not be worried when his own son's life was at stake? Even though he was the one who insisted on doing all of this. When Gongsun received Zhuangzhou's call, the corners of Qin Chang'an's eyes twitched subconsciously. Zhuangzhou summarized what had happened that night in a few simple words and told Gongsun the result in the end. Gongsun immediately beamed with joy. Seeing Gongsun's expression, Qin Chang'an knew that everything was fine. He was finally relieved. After hanging up the phone, Gongsun immediately ran over and said excitedly, "Master, young master is fine. I told you that young master is blessed by heaven. Nothing will happen to him. Don't worry." The corners of Qin Chang'an's mouth curled up into a smile, but it was just to hide the happiness in his heart. Then he asked in a low voice, "What's the situation now?" Zhuangzhou and Nangong escorted young master to escape successfully. Currently, they don't know where young master is. Unless he uses that identity, they won't be able to pinpoint his location. At that time, they will look for young master. At this time, they are going to Wuhan first because they guess that young master will probably go there. Gongsun repeated Zhuangzhou's words. Qin Chang'an nodded silently. Then, he glanced at the time and said, "Let's go to the airport." Gongsun said worriedly, "Master, you haven't slept all night. Don't you need to rest for a while? Your health is very important." After all, Qin Chang'an was already old. After staying up all night, he couldn't recover in 1 or 2 days. Qin Chang'an shook his head and said, Ran will be back soon. Do you think I can fall asleep? Aren't you afraid that she will tear this house down? Gongsun understood immediately. He chuckled and said, "You're right. Ran is so hot-tempered." In Huangmei town, Feng He and Gu Xiaobo continued to chase after Qin Xing for nearly half an hour. However, they didn't find any trace of Qin Xing. At this time, both of them were completely panicked. Feng He didn't know what to do. Gu Xiaobo's heart was in despair. He increasingly regretted his decision to betray Qin Xing. Feng He hesitated for a long time. In the end, he decided to report to Hulan. No matter how he would be punished, he would be the scapegoat this time. However, his mobile phone couldn't be turned on due to the water. They could only go back to the parking place and meet Chu Sikong and the others. Chang Baji had been searching nearby for 20 minutes. However, he didn't find any trace of Qin Xing at all. Chang Baji had no choice but to go back to the parking place first. After that, he drove around to look for Qin Xing again. When he came back, Chu Sikong had already left with the others. As a result, Chang Baji didn't have any scruples. He started his car again and searched around aimlessly. However, he didn't encounter Gu Xiaobo and Feng He. At dawn, Chang Baji received a text message from a strange number. However, the content of the message made Chang Baji feel both happy and worried. It was because the text message was sent by Qin Xing. The content was as follows: "I've left safely. I'll contact you when everything goes well. Qingyang covered my retreat. I don't know whether he's alive or not. Also, don't contact Gu Xiaobo. He has betrayed us. Everything that happened tonight was caused by him. Are you okay?" Chang Baji parked the car steadily. He held his mobile phone with a complicated look in his eyes. Qin Xing's text message had explained everything. Obviously, they were ambushed here because of Gu Xiaobo's betrayal. It really didn't occur to him that Gu Xiaobo would betray them and cause them such a great loss. He didn't know whether Qingyang was alive or not, which made Chang Baji quite worried. However, Qin Xing escaped smoothly, which made Chang Baji feel quite relieved. As for Gu Xiaobo's betrayal, Chang Baji would definitely find him and ask for an explanation. After all, he was also responsible for everything that happened. After that, Chang Baji texted Qin Xing back instead of calling him. That was because he was not sure about Qin Xing's environment, which might expose Qin Xing's identity. The content of the text message was as follows: "I've got it. I'm also in trouble and injured, but it's nothing serious. You need to change your plan. You can't go to Wuhan anymore. Contact me after you make a decision." After receiving Chang Baji's text message, Qin Xing finally let out a sigh of relief. What he did was somewhat risky. If something happened to Chang Baji, the mobile phone would definitely be in someone else's hands. At that time, someone would trace his whereabouts through the phone. Although it was impossible to find him, he would definitely be in trouble. Now it seemed that it was obviously Chang Baji's tone. Since Chang Baji was fine, Qin Xing felt relieved. At this moment, Qin Xing was sitting in a truck. However, this truck was not going to Huangmei town, but to Zhejiang City, which was on the opposite side. It was Qin Xing who borrowed this mobile phone from the driver. As for how he had explained, of course, Qin Shing made up a reasonable excuse. The driver was dubious about it. Qin Shing squinted his eyes and took a rest. He asked the driver to inform him when he arrived in Zhejiang City. Of course, he would pay the driver accordingly. Although the money in his wallet was soaked in water, it was still money. Since he could not go to Wuhan and he could not rely on the Zhang family, where should he go next? Could it be that he could only go there? Chapter 329. Safe and sound. What happened recently finally came to an end. I will update tomorrow. Fortunately, Qin Shing had sent a message to Chang Baji in time. If Gu Xiaobo and Feng He had contacted Chang Baji first, when Gu Xiaobo and Feng He returned to the car, Chang Baji, who had been seriously injured, would probably be killed. After all, Gu Xiaobo was desperate at this moment. He would never let the news of Chang Baji's betrayal spread. After making sure that Qin Shing was fine, Chang Baji started to look for Gu Qingyang. As his martial nephew, Gu Qingyang had been brought out of Tianmu Mountain by him. He had to be responsible for Gu Qingyang. Otherwise, how could he explain to his senior brother? No matter whether Gu Qingyang had escaped by luck or died in the underworld, as long as his life was uncertain, Chang Baji had to find him. If he was alive, he had to see him. If he was dead, he had to see his corpse. As for Gu Xiaobo, Chang Baji could rest assured that he would not let Gu Xiaobo off. He would definitely make him pay for his betrayal today. Gu Xiaobo and Feng He returned to the parking place. Chu Xikong was waiting anxiously. Because he had called Feng He, everyone's phones had been turned off. Chu Xikong was worried that all of them might have been killed. When they met, Chu Xikong asked in a hurry, "What's the result?" Feng He looked terrible at this moment. He gnashed his teeth and said, "We failed. He escaped again." Chu Xikong did not make any comments on this conclusion. He had done what he should do. As for other things, it was Feng He's fault. It had nothing to do with him. Someone would make trouble for Feng He later. Consequently, Chu Xikong squinted and nodded. "I see." Feng He gnashed his teeth and said, "He definitely won't be far away. I will call Hangzhou right now and ask them to contact the local forces and send more people. We must find him." Even though there was no hope, he would continue to work hard. Otherwise, if he went back like this, he would definitely pay the price. At dawn, Hulan and the others in the Cici villa had been waiting for a whole night. These people seldom stayed up late. Now that they had stayed up all night for this matter, they all looked a little dispirited. Hulan was drinking tea to support himself. Li Qingfeng was already drowsy. As for the heartless Luo Changgong, he had been snoring a long time ago. Qin Shing's life and death were no longer under his control. He had done what he should do. Whether he died or got well, he could accept it. Consequently, he did not have any burden in his heart. When Hulan's phone rang, everyone in the room became spirited in an instant. When Hulan saw Feng He's name displayed on the screen, he was stupefied for a while. Then he picked up his phone hurriedly. It was obvious that the other side had gotten the result. After the phone was put through, Hulan asked straightforwardly, "How is it? What's going on?" Feng He's feelings were extremely complicated as he said, "I'm sorry, Uncle Lan. I didn't do my job well and let him run away. I'll bear all the consequences and personally apologize to the second master." Upon hearing this news, Hulan was greatly disappointed. He almost roared angrily as he said, "Trash? You are a F***king trash. Can you F***king afford it?" Hearing Hulan's rage, the other people in the room naturally knew what the result would be. Li Qingfeng sighed helplessly as he thought, "This young man is really difficult to deal with. He is extraordinarily lucky. So many people have failed to kill him." Luo Changgong was both surprised and surprised. Naturally, he did not want anything bad to happen to Qin Shing. Consequently, after knowing the result, He was the only one who had a smile on his face at this moment. However, fearing that he would be discovered by others, he hid his excitement in a hurry and let out a deep sigh. Hulan scolded Feng He mercilessly. However, he still could not give vent to his anger. He should not have trusted Feng He. Instead, he should have led a team to kill Qin Shing in person. Feng He was not angry at all. After all, he had to bear the main responsibility. Consequently, he could only let Hulan scold him. It was not until Hulan finished venting his anger that he told him his remedial measures. Since things had come to this point, it was useless to blame Feng He. Now, the most important thing was to find Qin Shing. Consequently, Hulan had no choice but to make arrangements quickly. He mobilized people to go to Huang Mei town to support Feng He. Meanwhile, he tried to contact the local forces in Huang Mei town to find Qin Shing by all means. After making the arrangements, Hulan had no choice but to tell the news to Yan Chaozong first. He knew that this young master definitely had not slept and must be waiting for the news. As Hulan had expected, Yan Chaozong did not sleep that night. He was dealing with his work while waiting for the news. It was not until Hulan's phone rang that Yan Chaozong put down the work at hand and answered the phone. After that, he got to know the unsatisfactory result. Yan Chaozong only said and hung up the phone. After that, he smashed the phone heavily on the ground in anger. The phone, which was worth more than 10,000 yuan, was broken into pieces in an instant. F***ck. Yan Chaozong scolded angrily. It did not occur to him that the story between him and Qin Shing was not over yet. Moreover, he felt that Qin Shing would definitely be a big threat to him in the future. However, this group of servants did not do their job well. They failed to kill Qin Shing. Instead, Qin Shing escaped. Yan Chaozong knew clearly that he would have to wait for a long time for such an opportunity again. As for Huang Mei town, Chang Baji had been looking for Gu Qingyang for a long time. However, he did not find any trace of Gu Qingyang. His hope was getting slimmer and slimmer. Chang Baji still could not find Gu Qingyang even after dawn. During this period, he also encountered Chu Sikong's group of people. Chang Baji had no choice but to leave first and think of other ways. Qin Shing went all the way to the south and arrived at Jiujiang at dawn. Drenched, he found an express hotel casually and had a rest. He was really exhausted both mentally and physically. He needed to have a rest first before thinking about other things. In this way, the dangerous night finally came to an end. When he opened the hotel, Qin Shing naturally used his identity and Zhuang Zhou's bank card. This was what he had planned for a long time. As a result, Zhuang Zhou, who was on his way to Wuhan, received the news when he arrived at Huanggang City. It was confirmed that Qin Shing had appeared in Jiujiang. Zhuang Zhou let out a sigh of relief, which meant that Qin Shing was already safe. As a result, Zhuang Zhou and Nangong immediately turned around and headed for Jiujiang City. At the same time, they reported this news to Qin Chang'an so that he would not worry about them anymore. At the international flight exit of the Capital International Airport in Beijing, Qin Chang'an waited for half an hour before he saw Qin Ran, who had taken the earliest flight and rushed back. Qin Ran looked very haggard. She did not have much rest on the way because she was worried about her younger brother, who was in danger. She really did not know what her cold-hearted father was thinking. Why did he not reconcile with her younger brother and still let him be bullied by outsiders? She had loved her younger brother very much since he was a child. Especially after her mother passed away, she loved him even more. It was a pity that her grandfather had cruelly taken her younger brother away. As a result, they had been separated for more than 20 years. Everyone knew how she had survived the past 20 years. No one dared to mention her younger brother in front of her. She did not know how many nights she had been woken up by nightmares. She did not know how many times she had thought of her younger brother. Now, she finally found her younger brother. If it were not for Qin Chang'an's other arrangements, she would have reconciled with her younger brother long ago. Moreover, she knew that her younger brother had been bullied by outsiders and almost lost his life. Today, her younger brother was chased by his enemies again. Qin Chang'an still did nothing and wanted to continue to train her younger brother. How could she not be angry? Qin Ran, who was wearing a turtleneck sweater, black coat, leather boots, and black sunglasses, walked out of the airport like a queen. She was even more eye-catching than a star, followed by her two assistants. After seeing Qin Chang'an, Qin Ran was not happy at all. Instead, she said resentfully, "If anything happens to Qin Xing, Qin Chang'an, I will never forgive you in this life." Qin Chang'an smiled bitterly. He had been successful in everything he had done in his life, except for being a father. He had no choice but to say, "All right, don't worry. It's my fault this time. I apologize to you. As for Qin Xing, he is fine now. Wait for a while, and I will let you meet your sister and brother." "Wait? How long do I have to wait? Do you know how many years I have waited?" Qin Ran suddenly said with red eyes. She was so angry that she almost cried. Qin Chang'an patted her shoulder and said, "You have waited for so many years. A few more days won't make a difference. If you are worried, I will let you go and have a look first. But don't show up." Qin Ran could not help but ask, "Where is he now? Is he injured?" There was Wi-Fi on the plane, so she had been paying attention to Qin Xing's situation. At this moment, she already knew that Qin Xing was out of danger and completely safe. Qin Chang'an chuckled and said, "Jiujiang, take a rest. You can go there in the afternoon." "No, I don't want to wait any longer. Arrange a plane for me. I will go to Jiujiang right now," Qin Ran said willfully. She had been worried for so long. Only when she saw that her younger brother was really safe could she feel at ease. Chapter 330. The next stop. Qin Chang'an was old, really old. If Qin Ran had observed him carefully, she would have found that his forehead was full of wrinkles. His seemingly black hair hid countless white hairs, which were the traces left by time and vicissitude. However, Qin Chang'an knew how to take care of his health. Every time his white hairs increased, he would take the initiative to dye his hair. In this way, he was not found out, because he did not want others to think that he was too old. However, Qin Chang'an, who was close to 60 years old, could not change his age no matter how hard he tried. He was very clear that before he had a clear successor, many people were coveting his business empire. Moreover, Qin Ran was not married yet, which was full of unknown factors. This was also the main reason why he did not dare to reconcile with Qin Xing in a hurry. Even though he could let Qin Xing get rid of his grievances, it would make Qin Xing jump into a bigger pit, which was even more dangerous. He had to figure out what kind of person Qin Xing was, his character, and his ability, so that he could make the next arrangement. Now, he was satisfied. As a man and a father, he basically lived for his children for the rest of his life. Qin Chang'an was no exception. He was Qin Ran and Qin Xing's biological father and their support. How could he not feel sorry for them? It was just that his love was a little vague. Therefore, he could bear all of Qin Ran's capriciousness and complaints. No matter how resentful he was, he had no regrets. Because he knew that one day, they would understand that it was not easy for him to be a father. Although he looked bright and beautiful, he had a strong heart to support this magnificent life. He asked Gongsun to arrange the nearest flight or private plane to send Qin Ran to Zhejiang's Lushan Airport. Qin Chang'an stayed with Qin Ran in the VIP building of the airport for a while, and then drove back to the city with Gongsun. This night was really torturous. In Zhejiang City, Qin Xing slept for 6 hours in the express hotel before he woke up. It was already afternoon. Qin Xing dared not to stay in Zhejiang for fear that those people would catch up with him. After all, Zhejiang was too close to Huangmei town. The soaked clothes had been blown dry. Qin Shing had to make do with them. After that, he went out to buy clothes, a new mobile phone and a SIM card. After he turned off his mobile phone, he knew that many people were worried about his safety. Moreover, he needed to keep in touch with Chang Baji. After he finished everything, it was already 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Qin Shing went back to the hotel and called Chang Baji. The first thing he asked was, "Lao Chang, have you found Qingyang?" Hearing the familiar voice, Chang Baji was slightly relieved. However, Qin Shing's question made him feel embarrassed. Chang Baji was slightly relieved, but Qin Shing's question put him in a difficult spot. As time went by, the hope became slimmer and slimmer. If Gu Qingyang escaped successfully, he would definitely contact them. If he could not get in touch with Qin Shing, he would contact him, or Hao Lei. However, there was no news at this moment. Obviously, it was more likely that something had happened. He gritted his teeth and said, "Keep looking for him. I believe that he will be fine. Keep looking for him." Though Chang Baji was also worried about Gu Qingyang, he was used to life and death situations. Consequently, he said calmly, "Life and death are predestined. If he really dies here, it might be his fate. However, we will definitely not let him die in vain. Let's not talk about this. What's your plan now? You can't go to Wuhan, Hangzhou, or Xi'an." Chang Baji was very concerned about Qin Shing's next plan. "Let's not talk about this. What's your plan now? You can't go to Wuhan, Hangzhou, or Xi'an." Chang Baji was very concerned about Qin Shing's next plan. Qin Shing had already figured out a plan today. Since he could not go to Wuhan, he could only go to that place. At least, he would be safe. So he replied, "I'm going to Tsingtao." Tsingtao? Chang Baji frowned slightly. He did not know why Qin Shing chose this place. Qin Shing explained casually, "Qilu is a land of great heroes. I have a relationship with the Song family in Shandong. I almost became Song Jia's son-in-law. Though it's like a wolf walking into a tiger's mouth, it's safer than here. Since you've made up your mind, go to Tsingtao. During this time, don't contact anyone. I'll inform Hao Lei. When everything goes well there, we'll go there," Chang Baji said after thinking about it carefully. Qin Shing nodded silently. Then he asked, "What about you?" "I'll stay in Huang Mei town for a few days. If there's no news about Qingyang, I'll take the risk and go back to Hangzhou to inquire about the news. After that, I'll find a place to recuperate and wait for your news," Chang Baji said. Chang Baji had arranged everything properly, so Qin Shing did not need to worry too much. He did not care about Hao Lei and Tang Shi. He thought that Chang Baji would inform them. What he needed to do now was to open up the situation quickly after he went to Tsingtao. However, he had no specific plan on how to do that. After hanging up with Chang Baji, Qin Shing went to the train station quickly and bought the latest train to Tsingtao. Then he went back to the hotel and checked out. There was only 1 hour left. Since last night, Qin Shing's state of mind had fluctuated a lot. Once again, he escaped unscathed in such a situation. Compared with the situation in Mount Zhihua last time, it was much better. The next stop was Tsingtao. Qin Shing knew that it would not be as easy as it was in Hangzhou. After all, he could make use of many resources in Hangzhou. However, in Tsingtao, he had to start from scratch. Unless he was willing to marry into the Song family and become the man of the enchantress of the Song family, he could not rise up quickly. However, it was obviously impossible. After all, he had to be responsible for Lin Su. Consequently, Tsingtao was not like Hangzhou. It was very likely that he would have to live a life in Xiamen for a long time. However, as long as he was still alive, there would be hope. Qin Shing could bear the loneliness and guard it. He did not believe that his life was so bad that he had to wander from place to place. At the ticket gate of Jiujiang train station, Qin Shing looked back at the city that passed by in a hurry. He did not have too many emotions. Currently, except for Xi'an, he was just a passer-by in any other city. It was just a matter of time. Qin Sheng took out his phone and sent a message to Lin Su and Xue Qinyan. I am safe now. Don't worry about me. Qin Sheng had an amazing memory. However, he could only remember a few phone numbers. Lin Su, Xue Qinyan, Chang Baji, and Hao Lei were among them. As for the others, he really could not remember them. Consequently, he did not need to greet them. Carrying the snacks that he bought in the convenience store, Qin Sheng, who looked a little haggard and confused, walked into the train station without looking back and started the next part of his journey. In a car outside the train station, Zhuang Zhou was sitting in the driver's seat. Beside him was Nangong, whose eyes were cold. Behind him was Qin Ran, who had arrived at Zheojiang at noon. She waited at the entrance of the hotel for a few hours and then followed Qin Sheng for the whole day. She saw everything that Qin Sheng did. Looking at her tired brother who was living such a secretive life, Qin Ran really felt sorry for him. She could not wait to go up and reconcile with him right now, but in the end she held back. She already knew everything that happened last night from Zhuang Zhou and Nangong. It was another frightening night. When she heard it, her heart was pounding. It could be seen how her younger brother passed the experience last night. Fortunately, her younger brother had made it through safely, without any accident or injury. Otherwise, she would definitely ask Qin Chang'an for an explanation. As for those who bullied her younger brother, she would make them pay the price soon, especially Yan Chaozong, who kept pestering her. It seemed that the lesson last time was not harsh enough. Sister, he has already gone in. We should go. Nangong turned around and said softly. She was 2 years younger than Qin Ran, so she called her sister since she was young. Qin Ran was also very nice to her. However, when they met, they were already more than 10 years old, so Nangong and Qin Sheng did not have much contact. Qin Ran sighed and said, "Where is he going?" Tsingtao, Zhuang Zhou, who had already received the news, replied directly. Qin Ran bit her lip and said, I really don't know how many days and nights like this he has experienced and how many different cities he has been to, but he still does not have a stable life. The reason why he did not have a stable life was because he wanted too much. Zhuang Zhou said, He is a restless person, and he has a restless heart. Maybe this is his fate. Uncle Zhuang, how do you think I should meet him? Qin Ran asked seriously. After all, Zhuang Zhou had known Qin Sheng for a longer time than her. Zhuang Zhou did think about this. He hesitated for a while and said, Actually, you have already met him. It doesn't matter how you choose to meet him. He is a very smart man, and he will immediately understand the mystery. What I am afraid of is whether he can accept it or not. Based on his character, he is not willing to be controlled by others. Zhuang Zhou's words made Qin Ran fall into deep thought. It seemed to be true. What should she do? In the end, Qin Ran had a headache and did not want to think about it anymore. She had to go back and have a good talk with Qin Chang'an, so she said, Let's go back to Beijing. In Ningbo, Lin Su, who had returned to the Lin family, lived a peaceful life. As expected, Lin Chongting restricted her personal freedom, but she did not resist at all. She was not in a good mood, so she was not willing to go anywhere. She just wanted to accompany her grandma, miss the man in the distance, and pray that he would get through this crisis. When she received the text message, she was accompanying her grandma in chanting scriptures in the Buddha hall. She was worried, but when she saw the magic words, she calmed down instantly. In that case, she just had to wait for Qin Sheng's news quietly. In Shanghai, Xue Qinyan had returned from Hangzhou. She had been too busy recently. After all, it was the end of the year, and all kinds of projects needed to be reviewed. Qin Sheng refused her kindness, so she did not continue to travel. However, she kept an eye on the situation in Hangzhou, especially when Qin Sheng told her that he would leave Hangzhou in advance last night. She asked someone to inquire about the news, and got some inside information. This day, she had been worried about Qin Shing. She even called him several times, but unfortunately, she did not get through, which made her feel uneasy. Now, she finally received the news that Qin Shing was safe and sound, so she was completely relieved. Chapter 331. Dead. The train went all the way to the north. The scenery outside the window flashed by. There were big cities, small counties, and more villages. The wheat sprouts in winter had grown in the field. The mountains in the distance were full of bare tree trunks and the snow on the mountain top. Qin Shing sat by the window for a while. He was not in the mood to miss the scenery that flashed by. After all, compared with spring, the scenery in winter was not so good. Qin Shing was not in a good mood. Coupled with the gloomy weather, he felt even gloomier. There was heating on the train, so it was not so cold. Qin Shing stayed in the soft sleeper compartment with an uncle opposite him. The uncle said that he was going to Jinan to see his son. After chatting with him for a while, Qin Shing fell asleep. The train stopped and went on for 20 hours. It would arrive in Tsingtao at noon the next day. Qin Shing just lay there and did not want to get up. He did not care about the passengers in the compartment getting on and off. He slept all the way to Tsingtao in a daze. He was really exhausted both physically and mentally. He had thought that he would take root in Hangzhou, but he did not expect that he would still be a passerby. Anyway, his life in Hangzhou was the most fulfilling one in the past few years. He had a woman he loved deeply, friends, people who supported him, and a fulfilling job and career. The days when he studied in Xi'an later in Shanghai could be compared. He had to give up this kind of life and start a life similar to that of the past 2 years. Qin Shing was somewhat reluctant. He was really tired and did not want to go on like this. During the time when Qin Shing was on the train, Chang Baji had returned to Hangzhou from Huangmei County. Chu Xikong and the others had also returned to Hangzhou, including Feng He and Gu Xiaobo. If Chang Baji had not been seriously injured, he would have killed Gu Xiaobo. However, he did not take the risk. As for Qin Shing, he had contacted Hao Lei and told them not to worry about Qin Shing. Qin Shing had left safely. As for where he had gone, Chang Baji did not tell them. However, Chang Baji told Hao Lei everything about what had happened last night, including the unknown status of Gu Qingyang and Gu Xiaobo's inexplicable betrayal, in case Gu Xiaobo contacted Hao Lei and the others. Of course, Hao Lei and Tang Shi were very surprised. They didn't expect that so many things had happened last night. As for whether they could figure it out, they could only think about it slowly. In Beijing, Qin Ran rushed back to Beijing from Europe. She didn't even go home. Instead, she took a plane to Zhejiang. After staying there for a few hours, she took another plane back to Beijing. Even a man would be exhausted, let alone a woman. Moreover, Qin Ran still had to worry about her brother. Although she was physically exhausted, Qin Ran was very motivated. She felt that everything she had done was worth it. It was all for her brother. As long as it was for her brother, no matter how tiring or torturous it was, Qin Ran was not afraid. Qin Chang'an went back to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family. Today, he did not go to the company, nor did he go to meet the guests. He stayed in the Sihiyuan and rested. Last night, he stayed up all night. Unlike young people, he basically slept the whole day. When Qin Ran returned to the Sihiyuan, it was dinner time. Zhuang Zhou had informed Gongsun, so the kitchen prepared a few more dishes. Zhuang Zhou and Nangong did not follow her back. Instead, they went to Tsingtao first. They would meet Qin Shing there and continue to protect him in secret. Gongsun had been waiting in the yard in advance. He hurried to help Qin Ran carry her bag. After that, he asked the servants to put Qin Ran's suitcase in the room. He muttered, "You are such a troublemaker. You have been on the plane for 2 days. Don't you feel tired? You must have not eaten yet. Your father is waiting for you in the dining room." Qin Ran knew that Uncle Gongsun cared about her, so she did not talk back. She went directly to the dining room. Qin Chang'an was eating slowly. He was totally different from Qin Sheng. Qin Ran wondered whether this son was his biological son or not. As soon as Qin Ran sat down, she was about to say something. Qin Chang'an stopped her and said, "Fill up your stomach first. These are all your favorite dishes." Qin Ran wanted to talk back, but she finally held back. She had to pick up the bowl and chopsticks. Qin Chang'an picked up a few favorite dishes for her. When the bowl of rice was empty, Qin Ran said, "When are you going to reconcile with your brother?" Qin Chang'an scooped a bowl of soup for Qin Ran and said unhurriedly, "He is safe now. Don't worry." Hearing this, Qin Ran instantly stood up in anger and shouted directly, "Qin Chang'an, do you think no one can control you? Believe it or not, I will call grandma and uncle now. Believe it or not, I will go to Shangxi to find eldest uncle." Her brother was still dragging his tired body outside, while Qin Chang'an was enjoying delicious food here. How could Qin Ran feel balanced? This time, she was really angry. Not only did she mention grandma and uncle, but she also mentioned eldest uncle, who few people knew about. He was the person that Qin Chang'an was most afraid of. As for this eldest uncle, he was more legendary than Qin Chang'an. He was also Qin Chang'an's biggest support. Without this man behind him, the Qin family would not have today's foundation. Qin Chang'an was stunned. It seemed that no one had mentioned this person for a long time. He hesitated for a while and finally said, "You are a girl. How could you do this? I just said that you should wait for a few days and let him adjust his state in Tsingtao. Then you will meet again. Do you think it is appropriate to meet him now? He has just experienced so much. If you suddenly give him a heavy bomb, I am afraid that he will not be able to recover in a short time." It was not until then that Qin Ran realized that she had been fooled by Qin Chang'an. She sat down helplessly and said, "You already had a plan. Why didn't you tell me? Did you ask me?" Qin Chang'an was speechless. He really owed this girl in his previous life. She was the only one who dared to show her fangs and brandish her claws in front of him unscrupulously. If it were someone else, Qin Chang'an would have slapped her. Qin Ran admitted her mistake in a hurry and said, Okay, I was wrong." Qin Chang'an said meaningfully, "All right. Stay in Beijing for a few days and have a good rest. When he is emotionally stable, you can go to Tsingtao and take him back to Beijing. I will wait for him in Beijing. As for your grandmother, don't inform her yet. When she sees me, I will call her personally. The Zhu family has hated me for so many years. It is time to ease the relationship between them." The relationship between him and the Zhu family was really stiff. Qin Sheng was the key to ease the relationship between him and the Zhu family. Upon hearing that she could finally recognize her brother, Qin Ran's mood was really indescribable. Her whole face instantly became as bright as a flower. She showed her white teeth, and even her eyes were smiling. She smiled sweetly and stood up. "All right. I will go back first. Take your time to eat." Qin Chang'an said helplessly, "Are you full? Why are you in such a hurry?" Qin Ran said without turning her head, "I am afraid that you will find me annoying." Qin Chang'an finally showed a long-lost smile on his face. This way of getting along with each other seemed to be a little like a father and a daughter. In normal days they were like enemies. However, father and daughter were father and daughter after all. No matter how much resentment they had in their hearts, it would be solved eventually. At noon the next day, Qin Sheng, who had slept all the way, finally arrived in Tsingtao. In the past few hours, except for eating halfway, he basically slept all the time. It seemed that he wanted to make up for the sleep of a few months. He could not wake up no matter how hard he tried. The moment he stepped out of the train, Qin Sheng had a feeling of déjà vu. Because last time when he went back to Shanghai from Xi'an, he also took the train. At that time, he was full of confidence about the future. He even boasted by the Huangpu River, saying to the Huangpu River and the tall buildings across the river, "One day, this city will remember me for many years." But now, more than a year had passed. He had experienced a lot of ups and downs. In the end, he went back to the distant point and started everything from zero. Did he regret it? He did not. Because he was still young. If he gave up at this time, his life would really be over. Qin Shing took a taxi to the hotel he had booked, which was located in the Badagwan scenic area in Tsingtao. After lunch, he was ready to walk around in the Badagwan scenic area and then go to the seaside to relax. The reason why the Badagwan was called Badagwan was that there were 8 roads at that time, all named after the 8 passes of the Great Wall, namely Shaoguan Road, Jiaguan Road, Hengguan Road, Zhengyangguan Road, Linhuiguan Road, Ninghuaguan Road, Zijingguan Road, and Jiangguan Road. These 10 roads crisscrossed and formed a scenic area with a radius of several miles. Therefore, they were collectively called Badagwan, which was a famous recuperation area with many historical buildings left behind. After walking around the scenic area, Qin Shing went to the seaside. When he was in high school, Qin Shing's favorite singer was Su Wei. His current situation was just like Su Wei's song "You Used to Be." He used to dream of traveling around the world with a sword and seeing the prosperity of the world. When he was young, he was always a little frivolous. Now, he regarded the world as his home. However, what was different about Qin Shing was that the girl who once made him feel sorry for her did not disappear quietly. It was just that they did not continue to be together. However, he still had a girl he liked by his side. However, every time he felt sad, he would look at the sea alone, which was the same. After walking around the seaside for a while, Qin Shing felt much better. He remembered that when he was in Xiamen, Lin Su would accompany him to walk by the seaside every morning and evening. Those were the most leisurely days of his life. Since he was young, he had experienced so much. Although there were many bad things, there were also many good things. These were all memories, and Qin Shing did not regret it. When night fell, Qin Shing's mood recovered well. However, he received a text message from Chang Baji. He did not have time to apply for a new card, so he still used the number in Zheojiang. He planned to deal with these trivial matters tomorrow. The text message was very simple, but it stunned Qin Shing. He could not come to himself for a long time. Qingyang was dead. Although he had expected it, Qin Shing still had hope. However, when he got the exact news, he still could not accept this fact for a while. Qingyang was dead. He was really dead. He died just like that. Qingyang died for him. If it were not for protecting him, he would definitely be alive. A young man, who was at the most glorious age of his life, died just like that. There would be no future for him. Qin Shing fell into deep self-blame and guilt. The resentment that he had accumulated in the past few days burst out in an instant. He was so depressed that he did not know what to do. He wanted to drink. He just wanted to drink. He wanted to vent his feelings completely. He did not care about anything and did not care about anything. As a result, Qin Shing, who was out of his wits, randomly found the nearest bar and sat in front of the bar counter. He looked at the passers-by passing by and drank one glass after another. During this period, some beautiful women came over to strike up a conversation, but Qin Shing was not moved at all. When the drunkenness hit him, Qin Shing's consciousness began to become confused. He only wanted to rise up quickly so that he could avenge Qingyang and kill all those people. Chapter 332. How to meet in a strange city, in a strange place, surrounded by strange passers-by. Qin Shing drank alone to drown his sorrows. He wanted to vent the resentment in his heart. He was not willing to owe others, but he still owed a lot of people after all. He could not return the favor to some people now, such as Gu Qingyang, who had died for him. A few days ago they were together, drinking, chatting, and thinking about the future. They said that if Hangzhou could not accommodate them, there would be other places to accommodate them. As long as they were together, they believed that they could make it. The night before yesterday, they fought side by side and experienced a moment of life and death. In the end, Gu Qingyang chose to die for Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng remembered those scenes very clearly, including every word, every expression, and every movement. He had thought that it might be farewell forever after he turned around. Of course, he hoped that Gu Qingyang could be alive, make a name for himself, and experience all the glory in the future with him. However, he did not expect that it would be farewell forever. From then on, they would be separated by life and death, never to see each other again. People always knew how to cherish when they lost something. Qin Sheng was like this at the moment. If he had been nicer to Gu Qingyang, how good would it have been? Therefore, Qin Sheng was really sad at the moment. The resentment accumulated in these years had almost disappeared when he was in Xiamen. Now it came back again and completely engulfed Qin Sheng. He couldn't understand why his life was so unlucky. Wherever he went, he would be targeted. He couldn't hide and he couldn't escape. Why was this so? Just because he was a small potato without any family background, so those big shots could trample on him at will? Gu Qingyang's death completely stimulated Qin Sheng. Therefore, Qin Sheng, who drank more and more wine, began to lose himself. He fell into the boundless darkness and only thought about revenge. Now that he was in Tsingtao, he needed to get in touch with the Song family, so he did not need to think about anything else. Therefore, he called the eldest daughter of the Song family without hesitation. At this moment, the eldest daughter of the Song family was in the Hilton Hotel beside the Golden Beach in Huangdao District, attending a Chamber of Commerce dinner. She wore a black low-cut deep V-neck evening dress and a beautiful diamond necklace. Her long hair fluttered in the wind, and her temperament was still the same. She was the most dazzling one among the audience. All the young talents came to say hello to her and wanted to leave their contact information. She was really beautiful, with a kind of charm between her eyebrows. As long as she winked slightly, any man would have to surrender. No wonder Qin Sheng called her a seductress. However, no matter how powerful a seductress was, she was a woman after all. Women would be conquered by men. Only Qin Sheng had conquered the eldest daughter of the Song family. When the phone rang, Miss Song was surrounded by a swarm of flies. This was a situation that every beautiful woman would encounter. Usually, the eldest daughter of the eldest daughter of the eldest daughter of the Song. To say, every beautiful woman of the Qin. The eldest lady of the Song family smiled faintly as she said, "Excuse me, I have to answer a phone call." The eldest daughter of the Qin she to Qin said. She two of two Qin say one and two. Of Qin said. Of was two. Qin. The voice sounded very familiar. However, she had been separated from Qin Sheng for more than 2 years. Moreover, Qin Sheng had changed a lot. Consequently, she did not recognize him at first. However, it was rare for a stranger to know her phone number. Consequently, the person on the other end must know her. Consequently, the eldest daughter of the Song family frowned and said, "You are fiancé, what do you think?" Qin Sheng, who was drunk, said playfully. His words woke the eldest daughter of the Song family up in an instant. She was stunned on the spot subconsciously. It did not occur to her that it would be the heartless man who had left without saying goodbye before the engagement banquet, which made her lose face in front of the whole Song family. She had sworn that she would find him and kill him. Moreover, he had caused the Song family to lose the ancient jade. However, so many people of the Song family had chased after him for more than a year, but they had failed to do anything to him. In the end, she had given up. It did not occur to her that this man would come to Tsingtao today. Did he really want to die? After coming to herself, The eldest daughter of the Song family went straight to the point and asked, "Where are you now?" Qin Shing could tell that the eldest daughter of the Song family was full of murderous intent. However, he knew that she would not bear to kill him. Consequently, he teased her and said, "If you want to kill me, come on. Ba Dagwan, a glass of Shanghai bar." The eldest daughter of the Song family said gloomily, "Okay." After hanging up the phone, the eldest daughter of the Song family left the Hilton Hotel directly without saying goodbye to anyone. She asked the driver to send her to Ba Dagwan. She had not seen that man for more than 2 years. She really wanted to know how he was doing. Why did the eldest daughter of the Song family leave without saying goodbye? She doesn't look well. Noticing that the eldest daughter of the Song family had left, the two men in the corner whispered to each other. The other man said half-jokingly, "Who knows? The eldest daughter of the Song family has a strange temper. Maybe her menopause has come early. Ha 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 ha. We don't need to worry about it." The man chuckled and said, "The eldest daughter of the Song family is still single and looks down on everyone. Could it be that she likes women?" The man explained, "You don't know this. The eldest daughter of the Song family almost got engaged 2 years ago. Her fiancé was a nobody. Unexpectedly, the man ran away on the night before the engagement. Since then, our eldest daughter of the Song family has become like this. She looks down on men. I guess she has been deeply hurt." The man clicked his tongue and said, "What a strange thing. A man actually won the affection of the eldest daughter of the Song family. What's more amazing is that this man actually gave up. He really doesn't know how lucky he is. The Song family is the leader in Shandong." Obviously, he was somewhat envious and jealous. If it were him, of course, he would not give up. After all, it was the fortune that he had accumulated in several lifetimes. The man opposite him sighed and said, "Haha, the Song family in Shandong is not scary. The scary one is the Song family in Beijing. They are the real giants." At this point, they stopped talking. If they continued and were heard by someone with ulterior motives, they might offend someone. The winter in the north was somewhat cold, not to mention that they were in Tsingtao by the sea. The eldest daughter of the Song family only put on a coat and ran out. She did not have time to change her clothes at all. She did not know whether she hated the heartless man more or loved him more. Anyway, it was very contradictory. She thought that she had forgotten this man, but every time she thought of him, she would feel a piercing pain in her heart. The eldest daughter of the Song family urged the driver, "Xiaolu, drive faster." The driver, Xiaolu, was very surprised. It seemed that the eldest daughter of the Song family had never urged him. What was wrong with her tonight? Half an hour later, the eldest daughter of the Song family finally arrived at the bar where Qin Shing was in Badagwan from Huangdao district. Since she was going to attend the banquet tonight, she had put on delicate makeup, which was the etiquette of social occasions. Moreover, she was wearing a beautiful evening dress and had an outstanding temperament. Consequently, as soon as she entered the bar, she attracted the attention of all the people present. No matter men or women, they were all attracted by this beauty who suddenly walked in. All the people present were silent. Even the resident singer stopped singing subconsciously, as if God had pressed the pause button at this moment. Only the eldest daughter of the Song family walked forward slowly and looked for the figure that was both familiar and strange at the same time. Qin Shing did not pay attention to the door at all. Consequently, he did not know what was happening at this moment. He only shouted at the waiter, "Waiter, another glass of whiskey." The eldest daughter of the Song family also attracted the attention of the eldest daughter of the Song family. After repeatedly confirming that the man at the bar counter was the heartless man, she finally walked up to Qin Shing with courage until she stood in front of him. The aura of the eldest daughter of the Song family was very strong. Even Qin Shing, who was drunk, felt that something was wrong. Then he turned around slowly and looked at her. After that, Qin Shing revealed a frivolous smile and looked at the eldest daughter of the Song family, who was still a femme fatale. He smiled and said, "Jiqiu, you are still so beautiful." This was the name of the eldest daughter of the Song family, Song Jiqiu. Because she was born in autumn, she was called Song Jiqiu. It was a beautiful name. It was her grandfather who had given her this name. Unfortunately, her grandfather had passed away a long time ago. This was the heartless man in front of her. Song Jiqiu stared at the man in front of her. His beard was unkempt and he looked very sloppy. The smell of alcohol all over him was disgusting. His eyes were blurred and had lost their luster. She could not find the aura of the past at all. He was completely a man who had been abandoned by life. Song Jiqiu was very disappointed. She felt that Qin Shing was a stranger to her. She had liked the cynical Qin Shing in the past, not the degenerate man in front of her at all. She did not know what had happened to Qin Shing to make him like this. However, the man she liked could not be like this, even if she had liked him in the past. Consequently, Song Jiqiu raised her arm without hesitation and slapped Qin Shing hard in the face. This move shocked all the people present. The men, who had been envious of Qin Shing a moment ago, snickered secretly in an instant. They did not care what had happened on earth. Anyway, as long as this man did not win the heart of the beauty, they did not care about who would win the heart of the beauty behind the scenes. This was the deep-rooted bad habit of men. Qin Shing was also stunned by this slap. He did not expect that Song Jiqiu would meet him in such a unique way. When they had first met, he had not spoiled Song Jiqiu's bad habit. When they met again, Song Jiqiu actually dared to slap him, which instantly aroused Qin Shing's anger. Qin Shing stood up abruptly and stared at Song Jiqiu with his eyes full of hostility. Song Jiqiu was scared by Qin Shing's eyes and stepped back subconsciously. At this moment, Qin Shing did something that made everyone dumbfounded. It was something that made all the men bleed. He directly held Song Jiqiu in his arms and directly kissed her. At this moment it became lively. The driver Xiaolu, who had been standing at the door to send Song Jiqiu here, rushed over without hesitation. Song Jiqiu was also stunned. She did not expect that Qin Shing would do this. Although what should have happened between them had happened in the past, after all, it was in the past. When they met again today, what Qin Shing did obviously made her very unhappy. She wanted to push Qin Shing away with force. However, Qin Shing's strength was so great that she did not have any chance at all. After coming to her senses, she could only bite Qin Shing's lower lip ruthlessly, directly causing it to bleed. On the other side, the driver Xiaolu also came over. He immediately pulled them apart and protected Song Jiqiu behind him. After that, he punched Qin Shing's face without hesitation. Qin Shing, who was unsteady on his feet, staggered and fell to the ground. Chapter 333. Go Home? Tsingtao was the economic center of the Song family. Although the Song family's influence was not absolute, no one dared to offend the Song family. After all, the Song family was a powerful force in Shandong and the Bohai Rim. Now, Qin Sheng was in Tsingtao, which was the territory of the Song family. If he did that to the eldest lady of the Song family, it was tantamount to committing suicide. Fortunately, there was no one in the bar who knew Song Jiqiu. If this was spread out, Qin Sheng would not be able to stay in Tsingtao anymore. The driver, Xiaolu, did not know Qin Sheng. He was not only the driver of the First Miss, but also the bodyguard of the First Mississippi. Although he had only followed the First Miss for a year, he was loyal to the First Mississippi. In this kind of family, the driver was definitely one of the confidants and also a springboard for many people. If he was appreciated by the boss, he would definitely be promoted in 2 years. If he was not recognized, he would be fired soon. Xiaolu belonged to the former category. The young mistress admired him a lot, so Xiao Lu worked hard to perform. At this moment, someone actually dared to act like a hooligan towards Big Missy. How could Xiao Lu tolerate it? So she rushed over without hesitation and directly punched Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng was already half drunk at this time. Under normal circumstances, it was impossible for an opponent of Xiaoyou's level to get close to him. But now, he had really taken a punch and was lying on the ground in a sorry state. There was a handprint on his face, and his lips were bleeding. These were all Song Jiqiu's handiwork. However, Qin Sheng was threatened, so Nangong did not know whether to help him or not. He could only look at Zhuangzhou and ask. Zhuangzhou narrowed his eyes and shook his head. There's no threat. Let's wait and see. Nangong made fun of Qin Sheng and said in a somewhat disdainful tone, "Our young master is really popular with women. Wherever he goes, there will be no shortage of women. Moreover, all of them are the type that can bring disaster to the country and the people. I don't know how he offended this beauty." She slapped him right away. But isn't his response a little too direct? He behaved like a hooligan in public. He deserved to be slapped. As a woman, of course, she was on Song Jiqiu's side. It was Qin Sheng's fault for acting like a hooligan. Zhuangzhou chuckled and said, "That's enough. Don't be sarcastic. He is obviously in a bad mood. Besides, he drank so much wine. He is not in his usual state anymore." Humph. Nangong snorted coldly. In any case, her impression of this young master was getting lower and lower. Just a little setback, and he was beaten to such a state. He wantonly indulged himself. Not only was he a philanderer, but he also did not respect women. In front of the bar, the sudden scene could be said to be like the ups and downs of a roller coaster. The eldest lady of the Song family made a stunning entrance. She walked up to Qin Sheng and gave him a slap without saying anything. Qin Sheng responded strongly, hugged her and kissed her. The eldest lady of the Song family would rather die than give in and bit Qin Sheng. In just a few minutes, the plot was even more exciting than a movie. After Xiaolu knocked Qin Sheng down, he continued to pursue him. Who asked Qin Sheng to bully the goddess in his heart, the lover of his dreams? It would not be too much to beat him to death. However, at this time, Song Jiqiu directly grabbed Xiaolu and shouted, "Xiaolu, stop." Xiaolu thought that the man in front of him had a grudge against the first miss, so the first miss had hit him. He was confused and said, "First miss, why did you let him go just like that? How about I call the police directly?" Song Jiqiu was totally confused. She felt quite speechless as she said, "He is my friend. You can go out. Don't worry about me." "Young miss this?" Xiao Lu was still puzzled. Song Jiqiu's expression changed slightly as she said, "I asked you to go out first. Don't you understand?" Sensing that the first miss was going to lose her temper, Xiaolu did not dare to say anything else and walked out of the bar in a hurry. As for the man in front of him, he guessed that the relationship between the first miss and the man in front of him was definitely not clear. After Xiaolu left, the bar owner, who was standing not far away, asked, "Beauty, do you need any help?" Song Jiqiu was not interested in any man, so she directly refused politely as she said, "No, thank you." After saying that, she looked at Qin Sheng, who was still lying on the ground and laughing. She was completely speechless about Qin Sheng. They had not seen each other for 2 years. Where had the Qin Sheng, who had been high-spirited and frivolous, who had teased her in various ways, gone? Why was he only a drunkard who pretended to be crazy and acted like a fool? Anyway, they had had feelings for each other. Although Qin Sheng had abandoned her in the end, Song Jiqiu was not that kind of unreasonable woman. Consequently, she bent over and helped Qin Sheng up as she said, "Get up. Get up." Perhaps Qin Sheng was tired or bored. He did not continue lying on the ground. He stopped smiling and sat on the chair with Song Jiqiu's help. After that, he drank wine without saying a word. Song Jiqiu was somewhat worried, so she asked, "Are you all right?" Qin Sheng wiped the blood on his mouth with a tissue. This coquettish woman still had the same temper and made him suffer again. Then he asked the waiter for an ice hockey ball, wrapped it in a towel, and applied it to his red and swollen face. He was punched and slapped, which was really terrible. Qin Sheng still did not say anything. He covered his face with one hand and held a glass of wine with the other. Song Jiqiu's mood was messed up by Qin Sheng's sudden appearance. She was really mad and said angrily, "You just want to drink, don't you? I'll drink with you. Let's get drunk today. Waiter, one more glass of whiskey." When the waiter served the wine to Song Jiqiu, and she was about to take the glass, Qin Sheng grabbed her wrist and said, "It's not too late to kill me now. When I wake up, you won't have a chance." Qin Sheng's words made Song Jiqiu lose her temper in an instant. She had just said those words out of anger. After all, he was the only man who had been close to her heart. Even if she had been given a knife, she would not have killed him. Song Jiqiu stared at Qin Sheng and said with her eyes full of tenderness, "I need a reason." It seemed that she had changed instantly and was not as tough as she had been a moment ago. Qin Sheng lowered his head and said, "There are some things that I don't know how to tell you. You only need to know that during the 2 years I would not stop for anyone." Song Jiqiu did not ask further. Instead, she asked in this way, "What about now?" Qin Sheng sighed and said, "I'm tired. It has been 2.5 years. You have never contacted me. You appeared suddenly and disappeared suddenly. Today you showed up again suddenly. Qin Sheng, why did you torture me?" Song Jiqiu gnashed her teeth and said. She had thought that Qin Sheng would be her Mr. Right, but it did not occur to her that Qin Sheng would make the whole Song family lose face. For her, it was impossible to persuade her family to choose Qin Sheng. However, when she had accomplished the impossible, Qin Sheng gave up on her and left without saying goodbye. In the end, the engagement party became the biggest joke for her and the Song family in the past 2 years. Qin Sheng took a sip of the wine and said with a bitter smile, "I'm sorry." "What's the use of saying sorry?" Song Jiqiu asked. In the past, Qin Sheng would never say sorry. However, today, he seemed to have lost his former spirit. She hated Qin Sheng. Because of love, she hated him. In the end, they fell into contradiction. Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Let's drink. Let's not talk about the past or the future. Let's not go home until we are drunk tonight." Since Qin Sheng was not willing to do anything, Song Jiqiu was not willing to ask any more questions. She took off the coat draped over her shoulders and wore only the evening dress, revealing her impressive figure and firm breasts. She raised her head and drank up the whiskey in the glass in one gulp. This movement was extremely sexy. In particular, the perfect curve of her neck matched with her beautiful collarbone was really irresistible. The surrounding men could not help but swallow their saliva. However, everyone knew that such a woman could not belong to them. Obviously, this woman was not ordinary at all. When Song Jiqiu finished the glass, Qin Sheng also raised his head and drank up the glass of whiskey. With a beautiful woman by his side and a fine wine in his hand, he was happy. Everything else was just fleeting clouds. Therefore, in the following time, the two of them were silent and did not say anything. They just sat there and kept drinking. The more Qin Sheng drank, the more drunk he became. Finally, he could not hold on anymore. Song Jiqiu also began to be a little drunk. In the past, she had almost never touched alcohol. In everyone's eyes, she was a lady from a respectable family. However, after she met Qin Sheng, she completely changed her appearance. During the period when Qin Sheng left, she finally became good at drinking and often accompanied by alcohol. It was not until nearly half a year ago that she recovered. When Qin Sheng was drunk and lying on the bar counter, Song Jiqiu, as Qin Sheng's only friend in Tsingtao, had to take this drunkard back. Of course, she also paid the bill for Qin Sheng. Song Jiqiu could not help but scold Qin Sheng. After putting on her coat, Song Jiqiu asked the driver, Xiaolu, to come in. After that, they supported Qin Sheng to leave the bar. Zhuangzhou and Nangong also followed them out. They had already found out the information about Beauty Song and found that she was not dangerous. It had to be said that their intelligence was very fast. Maybe it was because the eldest Miss Song was too famous. However, for them, the closer they were to Siju City, the more powerful their resources and connections would be. After all, the Qin family also had many industries in Tsingtao. More importantly, they also had a lot of business contacts with the Song family. After helping Qin Sheng get in the car, Song Jiqiu sat in the back row. Qin Sheng directly lay on her lap, which made Song Jiqiu feel very uncomfortable. However, she could do nothing about it. After all, Qin Sheng was so drunk. "Eldest lady, where are we going?" The driver, Xiaolu, asked casually. He thought that they were going to take Qin Sheng to a hotel. Now he knew that it might be a misunderstanding. Obviously, he was a little impulsive. However, the eldest lady did not intend to blame him, which made him feel relieved. However, he still had a lot of doubts about this man. Song Jiqiu was lost in thought. She did not know where Qin Sheng lived. If she took him to a hotel randomly, she would be worried about this drunkard more or less. Consequently, Song Jiqiu finally decided to go home. The driver, Xiaolu, was stunned for a few seconds. He thought that he did not hear her clearly. Then he asked, "Eldest lady, go home?" Song Jiqiu said calmly, "Xiaolu, what's wrong with you today? He is my very good friend. Since he is so drunk, I must take care of him. Do you have any questions? Also, nobody is allowed to tell anyone about what happened today. Otherwise, you will bear the consequences." The driver, Xiaolu, replied in a hurry, "Eldest lady, I understand. I understand." After he finished speaking, he did not dare to say anything else. He drove to Huangdao in a hurry. This was the eldest lady's privacy. Of course, he could not pry into it casually. However, who on earth was this man? How could he be taken home by the eldest lady? It should be noted that apart from the immediate family members, no man had ever entered the eldest lady's mansion, including him. Chapter 334. Rekindling. Old love cities near the sea were always full of luxury houses with sea views. Moreover, Tsingtao, which was even more dazzling than Jinan, the provincial capital, was full of luxury houses with sea views. Song Jiqiu lived in the deep blue center on Hong Kong Road, which was a first-class luxury house in Tsingtao. It had a panoramic view of Fushan Bay and the most beautiful view of Tsingtao through the full-screen French windows every day. If she lived here, she would be in a good mood every day. The Song family owned many industries in Tsingtao, such as real estate, as well as many luxury houses, such as the famous No. 8 Liang Road and the Hanbai Building Manor on Phoenix Mountain. These were all built by the Song family. However, Song Jiqiu didn't want to live in the luxury house of the Song family, in case she would be disturbed all the time. On the way, Qin Sheng basically lay on Song Jiqiu's legs to rest. It seemed that he was drunk. He held Song Jiqiu's waist naughtily and touched Song Jiqiu's slender and beautiful legs unconsciously many times, which made Song Jiqiu feel ashamed and annoyed. She was afraid that the driver, Xiaolu, would see it, so she stopped him many times. However, Qin Sheng, who was unconscious, didn't know that in the end, Song Jiqiu gave up and let him do whatever he wanted. She didn't know how to deal with this drunkard. Maybe she owed him in her previous life. When they arrived at the gate of the deep blue center, Qin Sheng couldn't help it anymore. As soon as the car stopped, he opened the door and ran out. He bent over and vomited on the roadside. Song Jiqiu trotted over, frowned, and patted Qin Sheng's back to make him feel better. She even muttered, "Do you have to drink yourself to this extent? Is the previous Qin Sheng dead?" As the miss of the Song family, Song Jiqiu had never taken care of others like this, which was a luxury for every man. However, she met her enemy today. She had no choice but to take care of her boyfriend like a little woman. The driver, Xiaolu, handed a bottle of water to Song Jiqiu. Song Jiqiu didn't let Qin Xing rinse his mouth until he almost finished vomiting. After Qin Xing rinsed his mouth, he drank the remaining half bottle of water and finally became sober. It might be because Qin Xing had a good physique, so he had a strong ability to detoxify himself after drinking too much. Unlike many people who were completely hopeless when they got drunk. Are you not cold? Qin Xing straightened his back and turned around to look at Song Jiqiu, who got off the car in her evening dress in a hurry. Her hair was a little messy in the cold wind. It seemed that he had never seen Song Jiqiu look so lovely before. Xiaolu, the driver, came to his senses and ran back to the car in a hurry to take Song Jiqiu's coat. However, Qin Xing was one step ahead of him. He took off the coat and put it on Song Jiqiu. Song Jiqiu did not refuse Qin Xing's coat, which was full of the smell of alcohol. She was somewhat touched. Song Jiqiu was also a little drunk. She squinted and asked, "Am I dreaming?" Qin Xing stroked Song Jiqiu's long hair and chuckled as he said, "If it is a dream, I will never wake up from it." Song Jiqiu put her arms around Qin Xing's waist and leaned on Qin Xing's shoulder, unwilling to say anything. She used to think that she would definitely lose her temper and give him a good scolding when she saw Qin Xing again or find someone to beat him up. After that, they would be even and never see each other again. However, after she saw Qin Xing for real, she realized how stupid her idea was. After all, people could not deceive themselves. She still liked Qin Xing. Qin Xing stroked Song Jiqiu's back gently. What had happened this time made him look down on many things, especially on love. Only the weak would run away from everything, while the strong would only think of ways to solve their problems. In this life, people did not need to care about the views of the secular world. They could never leave themselves with regret. Only when they became strong enough could they have everything they wanted, including women. They could not give them to others and then say, "I wish you happiness." They could only give their happiness by themselves. At this time, Xiaolu, the driver, who had taken the coat and came out, was shocked by this scene. As expected, the relationship between this man and the eldest lady was unclear. No wonder the eldest lady had not been in love in recent years and had no chance to have further contact with a man. It turned out that there was someone in her heart that she could not let go of. Xiaolu had to treat the man in front of him seriously. After a long time, Qin Xing noticed that the driver, Xiaolu, who was not far away, was embarrassed. He did not know whether to come or leave, and he felt more uncomfortable standing there. Then he slowly let go of Song Jiqiu and said, "It's cold outside. Put on the coat." Song Jiqiu wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes quietly and then nodded obediently. Hearing this, Xiaolu ran over immediately and handed the coat to Song Jiqiu. Qin Xing took the coat and put it on her. Song Jiqiu told the driver, "Xiaolu, bring me the bag. You can go back first. You don't need to pick me up tomorrow." "Okay, eldest lady." Xiaolu immediately did as she was told. As for what Song Jiqiu would do next, it was out of his control. It was the eldest lady's freedom. Of course, he would keep his mouth shut about what had happened today. After the driver, Xiaolu, left, Song Jiqiu turned around, held Qin Xing's hands tightly, and looked at him with a faint smile. Under Qin Xing's puzzled gaze, she pulled him into the community. This was the first time for her to take a man back to the Deep Blue Center, although Qin Xing had been to her home before. Because of that, she changed the place from the Renaissance seascape to the Deep Blue Center, because she did not want to see or think about anything related to Qin Xing. Love always tormented most people. Therefore, those who could sing "Life is Nothing" and "Love is Nothing" were really free and easy. After opening the door and coming in, Song Jiqiu could finally relax completely. She did not need to pretend to be a lady from a wealthy family anymore. Without even turning on the light, she directly kicked off her high-heeled shoes and threw away her coat. Then she danced in the bright living room barefooted under the moonlight. It was unknown whether she was drunk or in a good mood. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Qin Sheng could see the panoramic view of the downtown area of Tsingtao at night and the dark sea in the distance. However, he had no time to care about these, because the most beautiful scenery was in front of him at this moment. Song Jiqiu had practiced several kinds of dances when she was young. When she grew up, she also learned various social dances. She was a professional and could totally support her family by dancing. At this moment, she was like a fairy, releasing herself in the dark. Moreover, the evening dress she wore today was very suitable for this occasion. Qin Sheng was completely attracted by her. Song Jiqiu just danced like this, without thinking about anything. She showed her most charming side. Qin Sheng just looked at her like this and said nothing. This was the first time that he had seen Song Jiqiu like this. Those memories of the past came to his mind slowly. In the past, he was a wanderer who would not look back. He was a passerby to everyone and did not want to leave any connection. Therefore, at that time, he felt sorry for many people, including Song Jiqiu. However, today, he was not that Qin Sheng anymore. Therefore, he wanted to make up for the mistakes he had made in the past. It was unknown whether Song Jiqiu was tired or she did not pay attention to her steps. When she finished a jumping movement, she lost her balance and screamed. It seemed that she was about to fall to the ground. With her delicate body, if she fell to the ground, she would definitely not feel good. This kind of plot was a bit melodramatic, but it was the truth. Therefore, Qin Sheng showed up at the right time to save the beauty. After all, even though he was drunk, he still had his instincts. Song Jiqiu thought that she was going to fall. She was so scared that she closed her eyes and accepted her fate. However, it did not occur to her that she would fall into the firm arms of a man. Of course, this man was Qin Sheng, because only Qin Sheng was here. Song Jiqiu opened her eyes slowly. Her charming eyes were even more attractive in the dark. Qin Sheng held Song Jiqiu in his arms. Looking at the delicate and charming beauty in front of him, he was somewhat tempted. After all, Song Jiqiu, who was called a fairy by him, was too beautiful. However, he still resisted the impulse and asked, "Are you okay?" Song Jiqiu did not say anything. She just put her arms around Qin Sheng's neck. Then, without any warning, she raised her head and kissed Qin Sheng affectionately. This time, she was really aroused. She did not bite Qin Sheng as she had done in the bar. Qin Sheng's mind went blank instantly. It did not occur to him that Song Jiqiu would take the initiative. He could not control the desire in his heart anymore and finally broke out completely. He responded to Song Jiqiu unscrupulously. Song Jiqiu and Qin Sheng, who had not seen each other for a long time, reunited like a lightning strike. From the floor of the living room to the sofa, they finally went to the bedroom. They had long become one with each other. At this time, they did not think about anything, because their desire was greater than everything. In the early morning, the sunlight shone through the French window on the naked man and woman who were hugging each other on the bed. The mess on the bed told the story of last night. The sunlight was somewhat dazzling. Qin Sheng opened his eyes in a daze. At this time, he had a splitting headache. When he lowered his head, he saw the beautiful woman lying in his arms. Qin Sheng was slightly stunned. It was not until then that he recalled what had happened yesterday. He could not help smiling bitterly and being speechless. Wine is really not a good thing. Qin Sheng moved Song Jiqiu away quietly and stood up quietly. He did not disturb her to continue her rest. After all, he was a little too presumptuous last night and made Song Jiqiu suffer for most of the night. It did not occur to him that the old love would be rekindled on the first night when they reunited again. Standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, Qin Sheng was in a good mood. Tsingtao was indeed a nice city. It was not a bad choice to stay in this city in the future. However, he was destined to leave this place. It was just a matter of time before he left. Are you going to leave without saying goodbye again? When Qin Sheng was thinking about his next plan, he heard Song Jiqiu's lazy voice behind him. She had woken up when Qin Sheng stood up. Qin Sheng smiled slightly. He turned around and looked at Song Jiqiu up and down with his scorching eyes. He said, "From now on, I will stay in Tsingtao and never leave. I'm going to be a gigolo." After saying that, Qin Sheng walked toward Song Jiqiu slowly. Song Jiqiu was too tired. If Qin Sheng asked her again, she would not be able to deal with him. Consequently, she held the quilt tightly subconsciously and said, "No." Qin Sheng was amused by Song Jiqiu's pitiful look. He laughed out loud and said, "You sleep for a while. I will go to make breakfast after taking a shower." After saying that, Qin Sheng walked into the bathroom. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.